a monkey. No, I'm pretty sure it's bodily contact. Anyways, we are live.
Starting off strong.
Don't want to guess what we were talking about before that. So let me just do my obligatory shilling tweets. Yeah, so this is on my channel this week, and the pin tweet. Oh my god,
This is why scheduled tweets are just a wonderful thing. When I wish Twitter Mobile would allow me to do it, because my time on Twitter would be significantly reduced.
Oh my god, yeah. So they have automated tweets. That's amazing. So here we are, another episode 5 of the digital archipelago. The Prisoners Archipelago. Very special guest. It's funny because it just, I don't know why, Kat, but it just works out this way. It seems that every time we do business together, it's like 2 times in a row. Like back when I was on Follow the Rules, it was like I had one stream with you, then another thing with you, or recording. It's like, I don't know. It's God intended it that way. And it's funny because on our stream, Helena was with us, and Helena, this like the exact same time, an exact same day. That's when our good friend Alex Kashuda decides to put her Helena episode to the public. So it's like this weirdo synchronicity, just being pummeled with the content. So this
you
week,
haven't had enough of me yet.
Yeah, I know, eh? I have to like force my. It's some of the comments I got were hilarious. Like my fans are so generous. Like they're like, the one was this stream is great if it didn't have 2 women on it. It's like, but I put them through it. I put them through the ringer. So like I said, yesterday was about women. Now it's about fat people today, but not just about fat people.
And fat women.
And fat women, exactly. Yes, exactly. So fat. Oh my god. We tried a few weeks ago to pre-record something, but Matt's internet just was like not having it for some weird reason.
The consequences of living in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's when I had a faulty router, that was pretty touch and go for a little bit, and it is maddening. But hope for those of you who don't know who have just joined in, this week we are covering 3 films. I don't know if I should face, but it's like not. I think like if everyone else is not facing, then it's like not adequate. It's just not cricket as the British say. But this week we're talking about, and I guess I'm the host because it's my channel. But this week we're talking about 3 films that have similar themes. They're about fat people, but like they have themes about desire and longing, and the name of the show I thought was very like, keyed in theory cellish. It seems like a grad paper. Some grad papers I've actually read on this topic about the undesired bodies. And so we're going to talk about these 3 indie films. And I don't know where you guys want to start off. Maybe should we start off? I guess Pig Hag could be in the middle because it's about.
Oh, I thought that would be the funniest one to end on. Just I watched that one, and I took notes, and that was the first of the 3 films that I watched. And I was just laughing through the entire time because just how it ends, and we'll get to it. But I thought out of the 3, it'd be a good one to maybe we hit them with the heavy stuff first. Because
Fatso is like, to me, the most meaningful. But like, yeah, we'll start with heavy. So maybe if you could like, I wonder if I could like pull up the slideshow. I'll put another window here just to Google the images. I guess that's what our good friend Academic Agent does all the time. But let me just really quickly do that. So yeah, the first film, Heavy. This is an indie film from '95. I happen to really enjoy early 2000s indie films, or like late '90s, early 2000s. And this has Liv Tyler in it, who is the daughter of a Steven Tyler. Was that his name? Yeah, from Aerosmith. So let me just pull it up really quickly. Oh man, the images are crazy. You could just tell. And he has these. Let me just let me do the screen share. Can you guys still hear me?
Guys,
Yep.
I don't think you told me to watch Heavy 95. I thought we were doing the two Fatsos. And Pig Hag.
Oh yeah, we could. Yeah, but man,
I've seen both Fatsos, so we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Do Heavy. I could chime in, but we don't need a woman's voice dominating the undesired, masculine convo. I think maybe it's for the best.
Yeah, maybe that could be it. So this is the screen share. This is from 95 Heavy, and so it centers around I forget his name in the film.
Victor.
Victor, his mother owns one of these classic look at Liv Tyler back then. Oh my god.
Yeah, mid-90s Liv Tyler, because this is right before Armageddon too. Stunning.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's set look at that. That's like Twin Peaks vibe right there, the waitress. So it centers around Victor, whose mother owns this dive bar / restaurant, typical of that era, small town America, stuff you'd see in a Liminal Spaces compilation, where it's the kitchen with the bar type deal. And he is so this is morbidly obese for the mid 90s, by the way. So
he's on typical, the in the movie that he does have a moment where he steps on the scale and he's just a little over 255.
Yeah,
which I feel like is what the average American weight these days.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But Pruitt Taylor Vince, the actor, does a fantastic job of playing this sort of shut-in cook at this diner that could easily be confused for the double R in Twin Peaks or something you'd see out of a Mytho America tweet.
Yeah, exactly. The whole bar itself looks like a Mytho America tweet, and I think that's why it's so effective as a film. And so essentially she is a teen what would you say, vagabond. Her boyfriend is a mechanic, but he's kind of wannabe rock star, not I think she gets knocked up in the film as well. So that's another thing. So it's basically centered around how Victor has this relationship to his weight, but he also has this sort of pent up desire for what's her character's name? I forget. And so
her name's Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly. Yeah. So sure. So it centers around his relationship to his own body, but also about how he's sort of a shut in. It kind of reminds me a little bit about Lars and the beautiful girl, because he's got this sort of neurodivergent cadence, and he's sort of a very soft spoken. He barely has any dialogue in the film. He says a few words here and there. He has this crushing inability to express himself, and that combined with his weight, combined with being a mama's boy and being a shut-in and sort of being surrounded by typical small America. The other waitress woman is sort of the town, older women who are sort of perpetually single, and they're the town pass around girl. And so he's always surrounded by, on the one end, loose sexuality, but also him himself being this older, fatter incel. And so then they also have this mutual attraction to each other, because Kelly, in this one moment, she's an amateur photographer, and she takes a picture of Victor, and then she's with her friends, and she sort of puts her picture next to his, and so she's sort of contemplating life with this older man, but it never goes anywhere, of course, because of just his perpetual inability to express himself, and of course her being wanting to get away from small town America. So so Prude, you were watching this, and what was your impression of Heavy?
Well, I find this whole stream to be particularly interesting because I've I've somewhat been the inverse, as like the skinny underweight kid at points in my life. So watching this though was it was interesting to see the archetype of the shut-in male in a way that was like pre-internet. The other two movies are way after the social media era, so there's a lot less social interaction or a lot less social awkwardness that's done verbally these days. Victor's character, Victor, the character, he's surrounded by the small town culture where things that happened years ago will always affect him, like his dad being dead, his mom's in poor health. And the woman that he works with, the other waitress, Dolores, is sort of this loose woman who slept with his dad a while back. But I thought that the acting was fantastic because the guy who plays Victor, I'm trying to remember, Pruitt Taylor Vince, all of his acting is done with his body and his emotions. He's a very emotive actor, which I thought was perfect.
Yeah,
for us. He didn't need to say anything at all for us to understand that he's looking from afar, that he's lusting after this. And I don't want to call her like a manic pixie dream girl, because she's not. She's just this like youthful, innocent. I'm away. I dropped out of college to. Yeah. Oh, speaking
Look
of
at Arthur Powell. Absolutely.
Girl, there you go.
I shouldn't do this because, by the way, I have super chats enabled now. Please sneed those super chats. But Arthur Powell. So this film is classic delusional pity party. People who won't change themselves on an early version of Pixie Dream Girl. Yeah, well, he does change himself near the end. We'll get to that.
that. Also, I wanted to point out this was written by and directed by James Mangold, who has done Girl Interrupted, Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma. Like, he's a fantastic.
That's the feel to it. That's yeah. Girl Interrupted because this film score was written by Michael Dana. But like Girl Interrupted's like one of those absolute like classic films. And that's why it has that typical feel. So did he direct this before Girl Interrupted and before of course, way before 3:10 to Yuma?
I'm pretty sure because Girl Interrupted came out in 99. So this is 4 years before. But
99 in like, younger person cinema was like ground zero. Like you had Girl Interrupted, you had
American Beauty.
Yeah. You had a bunch of other ones. I forget. What was that one with oh my god, what was the other one? What was it called? The chick flick one. I forget.
Ghost World? I think Ghost World was 2001 maybe. Let's see.
Yeah,
American
the one
Pie also came out in 99.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Between 98 and 99 are great years for films. I mean, there's also Pleasantville, American History X. I mean, there's just so many good movies.
Yeah. Well, Pleasantville, I mean, I would get my channel banned if I talked about the true meaning of Pleasantville. But yeah, so Heavy, what happens then? So this is also good tea by King Salmon Fish. Can we acknowledge that chicks like this are literally just in random nowhere towns all over America? I mean, what made God so happy that we have this arrangement? Yeah, it is true that you will find like small town beauties, but I feel like small town beauties, they're also besieged by like a bunch of perpetually lonely men. And so, of course, like huge cities are kind of like the sort of like like the term brain drain, like third world brain drain to like the developing world, the developed world. It's sort of like you could say like big cities are like, in terms of women, like physiognomy drains, in terms of like, if you're an attractive woman, you sort of get out of that situation. You like go to, you don't stick around to the sticks. You like go to the big cities, and that really sucks. But like, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
Well, I would add just that this does have a very small town feel by the nature of it. Like, this is something that I could easily see happen where I live, especially because I am usually a patron of a very small diner. I try to avoid anything like a chain. But yeah, I mean, that sort of drama and the sort of shut-in style of people. I don't know if you see that as much these days. Again, this is like one of those big pre-internet, pre-social media kind of films where the atypical social shut-in that works a job and then goes home and does this thing is kind of rare to find. Like the other movies, right? Like the 2008 Fatso or even Pig Hag are totally different. in that regard, which I quite enjoyed seeing something that was not based on the internet. Like there's a scene where they have one of their like local patrons is too drunk to drive home, so he crashes there, and he's sitting next to Victor, and he's showing him his wallet, which has got like a bunch of like pictures of naked women on it, because he works as like a photo delivery guy when you'd had to develop your photos. And he's like, you'd be surprised what people leave behind. And he's just got this collection of nudes, and Victor's just looking at him, and it's just a quick nod to sexual frustration, but also the fact that he's just alone, and versus someone that can sleep around with like the loose waitress.
Yeah, the loose waitress. Yeah, they're always that. And so what happens is, wait, someone said, since when is default? Since when is Ghost World a chick flick? Is Ghost World a chick flick?
I would say, yeah, it's like the alt chick flick.
Yeah, like Tank Girl.
Yeah. There's like a whole genre of these movies. But anyway, let us not derail, as I want to do.
Yeah, no problem. Small town in America is just as nightmarish as big cities. Please, people, need those super chats. I feel bad when there's a good comment and then it's like, I highlighted. But anyways, then what happens in the film is, so there's this, like, as time goes on, he's sort of like reveals that his father died and so forth. Then the matriarch of the whole thing, who owns the bar, she and of course he's like trying to lose weight. Of course, at this time, this is like the heyday of like those liquid diets, Slim Fast or whatnot. And she ends up in the hospital. She eventually dies. But what's really weird is that he doesn't tell anybody for like 2 weeks that his mother died. And so he's like, yeah, she's, not doing too great. Maybe, so you want to take over, Prudy? Do you remember this scene?
Yeah, so he's eating in the cafeteria, sort of just waiting because he doesn't want to talk to the doctor. And I don't know if he's just like a psych patient or maybe someone that was like, because he mentioned when they get to the doctors that there's like a whole wing blocked off for like the cops, so he could be the guy. But just talk about like the loss of the mother is really bad, and the only thing that really tops that is the death of a child. And they say that he's doing better, but who knows. And but as he leaves and he goes back to the room, Victor finds that his mother's no longer in her hospital bed. He sort of sees all of her like materials, like in possessions, bagged away, and realizes that she's gone. And he's just an utter wreck, and he doesn't tell anybody, and he keeps the lie up for a while. And all of his like Slim Fast, his desire to lose weight, is just utterly wrecked by this emotional moment, and starts binge eating.
Yeah. But then there's a scene that really snaps him out of it. Was, Kelly like tries to get close to him, like comfort him, because his mother is in the hospital, or what she believes. And there's a scene where she asks to go see her in the hospital, and he's like, yeah, just come early in the morning. And then I think there was this other scene where he visits this culinary school of America. Like, he has this dream of being a chef. Or rather, that's implied. And so then Kelly comes in her nice best, Sunday dress. This is like old school, when you actually like dressed up to visit someone in the hospital. Like, I could remember when I was a kid, my parents visiting older people in the hospital. It's like very small towny type of thing, right? They go and drive, and then she's strange. It's strange because he's not driving to the hospital, rather he's driving to the cemetery. And they get out. She's like, "Why are you getting out of here?" And it's a cemetery. And he gets out, and she follows him along, and she's like just absolutely shocked that he's like, "Yeah, she died before, and he didn't tell anybody." And she freaks out because, of course, like, imagine being in that situation. It's like, whoa, this guy's a creep, right? But then I think the only thing he could say was, "I don't want things to change." And that really struck me because, in my life, I've always been of the similar, like, I don't want things to change. I mean, I was like, when I was in school, like I was terrified of changing grades, you know. And it's like when you are like a man who doesn't have like a wife or kids or relationship, and you're sort of like accustomed to like being with your parents or being with your mother and taking care of her. Like like in my small town, I've known men like this, you know, a lot of Italian men, especially, like, especially when they have older siblings. It's like, you know, you take care of your parents, take care of your mother, and then you sort of like never move on. You sort of like, you know, you stay at home. It's like I've known quite a few men like this, and they're everywhere in like small town America or small town Canada or wherever. Like even in Europe, I think there's, you know, especially in Europe, like there's a lot of like this happening. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the sense of not wanting things to change, especially for like the shut-in, right? This is a fundamentally dramatic shift from, because the film establishes, right, that Victor's got a routine. He's the cook, he's the chef, he takes care of everything, he takes care of his mother. Even the mom before she dies is all like, well, he makes me a buffet every morning, and he goes out into town and picks up things, and he likes the cash register girl and things like that, and which
Yeah.
is important later at the end. But you know, later on, as that happens, there's also a scene where he's driving the other waitress, Dolores, and this is where he gets the idea to take Callie later to go watch airplanes land. Which I don't know if anyone like remembers this experience, or like living close by to an airport where you could like park your car just like right outside the fence,
Yeah.
and you can just
Yeah.
watch airplanes land and identify them. I remember that distinctly growing up as a kid living in Maryland, but it was something that just felt like a, people don't do that anymore, right? I guess the fascination or the wonder of the sound of it, I guess, is lost, but which I find interesting. And you know, he's there with Dolores, and she's like kind of getting handsy with him, and he rejects her sexual advances. Because I mean, like, why would you want to sleep with the person that slept with your dad? You know, like
Yeah.
there's clearly some awkward discomfort there. And of course, Dolores is already always in a bad spot with the mother because the mom had painted the word "slut" on the bathroom window
Was
with
it
her
the
nail
mom that did
polish.
it?
Well, yeah, because when the
Yeah.
mom calls Victor to ask for her nail kit, he like pulls out the paint and just starts to draw it on the mirror, and he's like, "Oh, it was my mom who did this," you know.
Mm.
But I really, what snaps him out of it is you know, telling Callie, everyone getting mad and upset. He tells Dolores he's fired, and he breaks the news to everybody. And he really doesn't snap out of it until basically everyone's gone. Like, you know, and during this whole time, right, Callie, played by Liv Taylor, or Tyler, excuse me, is just, she's got this like rocker boyfriend who works in like a mechanic shop, and all of this, you know, culminates in her coming back and breaking up with him and saying that she's leaving to go back to college. And finally, he sort of emerges from binge eating and tries to get his act together.
Yeah, and then he actually goes to the grocery store and like starts striking up conversation with the clerk, and it implies that his life is turning for the better. Um, but I think it's really great because like I love a lot of these like really small, quiet indie films where there is like, I know like they're like really boring to certain people, to like a lot of people. I like every time like I would be like I would pick a movie like with my folks, and I would like be attracted to these type of indie films. And my mother just like, she's like hates them, right? She's like, "Ah, this is boring. I wasted my time." Uh, but I think I like the nice quiet character piece because it does embody like a lot of experiences of sort of like growing up in North America in a small town and not having like the resources or the will to deal with your own issues, and not having like the sort but even still, like, I mean, living in the city of course like has its own problems. And like, I don't, well, Matt, you've lived in both like small towns and cities, and oh my god, we have a sticker, $10 from Kronkicks, a super sticker. Although I can't does it yeah, it doesn't show the little animation. I wonder what he picked. Let me go to my phone. But thank you,
It was a hippo.
Kronkicks. Oh, it's a hippo. Nice. Oh my god. Oh, it had to be a hippo, right? For this stream.
Of course. I mean, if only save it for hopefully there's some rhinos for Fatso.
Yeah. Oh my god. See, he talked to a cashier. This totally banal, normal interaction, especially in the 90s. What a Arthur Powell, my god.
But but it was a different world. I mean, that's the whole thing. This is why the film feels so out of place for watching it now, right? Is because he's like 255. He talks to his mom and he's just like, I'm fat, mom. And she's like, no, you're not. Like the weird sort of like perpetually self-infantilizing mom. And
yes,
which adds on to the shut-in.
Can relate. No, it's true. It's because I think like when you're a parent of any kid with a weight issue, it's like you want to enable them, but at the same time, it's like there's a lot of problems I feel that like when you have a problem that's systemic, that sort of like develops over time, it's very easy to normalize it. It's very easy to sort of like ignore it. And I feel like that's why it's impossible to talk to like someone with a family member who has like, self-destructive behavior. And especially when you're a small town and you're close knit, it's like everyone around you. It's sort of like Lars, right? Like everyone around him enabled that delusion. I mean, this is different because I feel like, especially nowadays, like in America, like a lot of people, like let's face it, a lot of people in America are fat, obviously. As a fat person myself. It's like it becomes like just a normal facet of life. But like to your point, Prude, like this is like in the 1990s, him not being able to, it's funny because in Fatso he also asks the clerk out, but back in the day, to not be able to like strike up a conversation or to like approach talking to something as mundane as a store clerk, that like is a symbol of the extreme self-isolation that Victor has put himself in. Whereas nowadays, I think like that would almost be normal because it's almost like, I don't know what it's like in America still, but like in Canada, it's almost like this weirdo, like quasi unless you live in a small town, this like weirdo, like quasi almost Scandinavian like attitude of, it's best just to like look away and not like, smile at someone in the street and just like, mind your own business. I don't know if it's like that in America now. Is it like that? I don't know. What
I would say, yeah. I mean,
I think it depends where.
Right? Yeah, the stores that you go to would depend. Like if I'm at say like a Publix or a Kroger or a Whole Foods, the environment is definitely not as different. Maybe because there's like that element that is it's like going to Target instead of Walmart. It's the 4 out of 10 that put on some makeup for you. It's something that gives you a sense of high trust. Whereas if I go to Walmart, you're like, okay, stay strapped, don't talk to anybody, get your shit and leave. And not to mention with the rise of self-checkout counters, which, I become the wagey for the megacorp. It's not a fun time, but I mean, those interactions are just rare and few and far between. If it's a small business or a locally owned grocery store or restaurant, that stuff is still very much alive and well, where you're going to see regular people and regular names and faces. But that does really exist, I think, a lot more in the small town than the big city. Not to say that there weren't people in the city that I could regularly go to, say hello to and whatnot, but again, it had to be about a small or independently owned business.
Yeah. Well, Arthur Powell has a good point. Sorry, Gio, enjoying the discussion, but it sounds like the character is the foreshadowing of the incel isolationism of today. Yes, 100%. Absolutely 100%. Hit the nail on the head. And this is why I wanted to talk about these films, not just because I'm a fat person myself, but like they are sort of like even like in 2008 with Fatso, they are very indicative of the experiences. And I guess with Kat, we'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk more about like the experiences of the sort of position of being not conventionally desirable and also living in places that don't facilitate huge interactions with different peoples. And I think that's kind of like why it's only natural that a lot of like people with quote unquote alternative lifestyles and fetishes, why big cities are sort of like a magnet for them. Like I remember back in the day, when I used to watch this certain YouTuber who had to leave, he had this episode about like this Tumblr blog of this furry asking where they could find other furries, and this person's like the response is like on Tumblr, because I never could understand the notes thing, like maybe well default what was the notes thing, like you could repost
It's
someone's
like,
notes.
it's like quote tweets.
Okay, yeah. And this person was like, well, just go to any big city, like go to Portland, go to Toronto, go to New York, and you'll find your fetishistic fandom of choice. And but back in these days, even nowadays, I mean, to live in a small town, to have like a different proclivity, that's another thing too, is that like being a fat person was sort of becoming common, but at this time was not that common. I don't feel like it was still there, but it wasn't like it wasn't like nowadays where you really like can't ignore fat people anymore. Like it's even in media. Like I'm even seeing ads. I mean, it is mostly women. Like there is no like. There was a time within sitcoms where it was usually like the fat dude and like the put together woman. But like in terms of nowadays, I mean, when you see like fitness ads with like usually fat women of a certain racial character, it's like, it's like I can understand why people are so hard on this stuff, the seed oils and all that. But yeah.
Well, I think that the real sign of the times, right? I think like the last show that really played up to that was Parks and Rec, right? With what was his name, Jerry or whatever, like sort of the fat, older middle-aged balding white guy. And they were like, "Oh, how does he have this like super model wife or whatever?" But that's really like the last show I can remember where the obese person or overweight person, had that trope. That TV trope seems kind of lost, but I don't watch a lot of sitcoms, so maybe I don't know. Yeah. But the other thing about it though too, right, is that you walk into any sort of clothing store or anything, like, Target's notorious for this, and I'm just going to hammer on Target because that's what I'm used to. When you walk in and you see the what's the word, mannequins with like a pouch or whatever, it's just like, oh, well, clearly we're trying to reflect the sign of the times, with America being like what 2/3 overweight and obese now.
Yeah, wow, even the mannequins are changing now. That's amazing. But I don't think that's a good thing though. Like, I mean, like this is, I think, what I wanted to talk about. Like in a sense, I was like reading some articles and books on this. There was this one article about this fat woman and her experience dating in Vox, but of course it's coded with the typical like leftoid acceptance crap. But I do feel that on the one end, when it comes to people who are either unconventionally attractive, especially through their weight, I do understand like the approach of like extreme chastisation doesn't automatically work. Like me myself, I've recently because like literally everyone's telling me to this is like the sure strategy, and apparently this is what worked with Perry. Perry on Twitter. He's everyone's friend.
Election legal.
Election legal. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'm started the intermittent fasting thing. Where like I only eat between 5 and 9. And so like I mean it's good because it's, in a way, it makes my life simpler and I don't have to like worry about cooking breakfast. But in the other end, it's sort of like when you're used to like overeating for so long, it's like it is a shock to your system. But I noticed that as time goes on, I've been doing this for like 4 days now. It's getting like slowly more like tolerable. But anyways, that's just my personal take on. I feel that on the one end, um, there's a very complex series of reasons why we are facing this obesity crisis. And yes, personal habits and behavior is a big part of it. Not the only part, but it's a part. But the problem is when you do live in sort of small town isolation, and when you do have people in your life that would choose to like the path of least resistance when they choose to enable you rather than trying to motivate you to change. But then also the motivation to change comes from people who like basically attack you on a level, it's conundrum where you sort of go inside of yourself. And I think Victor is like the sort of extreme example of that, of you dwelling within yourself and further entrenching yourself into a pattern of existence that you know in the end is not going to serve you. You are lonely, you're fat. Maybe I'm just telling myself, but telling on myself, but you're lonely, you are fat, you are entrenched in this certain form of behavior. And but the cost of changing is so dramatically high when you've existed like this for so long. You know, it's near impossible. So it's kind of interesting how, unlike a lot of other like of these very quietist, character driven indie films that don't that basically essentially end in an aporia, um it's very interesting how this one ends on a positive note. So yeah. I don't know if, I mean, this film I've been talking a lot, so I don't know if you have any um anything to add there. But yeah.
Well, I think like to the point about like isolation in small towns, you can't, I mean, there you just really can't walk anywhere. If you're not committed to physically going to the gym, and if you don't have a home gym, which understandably most people don't, I mean, there's just no way that like if I don't think people realize that if you're truly out of shape, like it takes about a year to be able to do like a single push-up. It takes a really, really long time. And that it regardless, it doesn't even matter if you're obese or not. If it's just like if your lifestyle has been sedentary. So you kind of need to go to a gym. I remember like when I lived in Texas, I'd walk like 5 miles to the HEB in the heat. And I mean, like it took hours. It was like, just back in the whole event was like, that was my day. And I was exhausted by the end of it. If you don't drive, right, it's just like you're finished. The lack of walkability is actually really significant.
Yeah, and there's issues with walkable cities too. The walkable city, yeah, Matt, the walkable cities discourse, that's kind of very interesting. How that like has managed to like tear the online right to sunder. Like it's where do you stand in this issue, by the way?
Both equal parts issues of certain things that can get you in trouble on YouTube, but also like urban planning. That my good friend Clossington has been ranting about this heavily because he does work in as a civil engineer, and he's just like, we've also done a lot in the last 60 years to make our cities as unwalkable and unhealthy as possible by zoning and construction regulation, but at the same time you can't ignore the obvious other issue that gets difficult to bring up in certain certain communities. So yeah, I mean that's something that comes up where you can't.
I will say though, like I've been peeping the comments a little bit. When I say like unwalkable, like a lot of people really do live in these apartment complexes that are like on the side of a highway or something. So they're like, unless you're like, who the hell is going to walk around a parking lot and in Plano? You know what I mean? Like they're literally, for a lot of people, there's not a suburb that's kind of ugly. You have to like commit to walking inside like your brutalist apartment complex that is, depressing as hell. And I don't blame people for not doing that.
Yeah, in Canada, it's almost impossible, like in certain parts, even in Ontario, to like not have a car. Like if you live in Toronto, you can do it. If you live in like a bigger city, even if you live in Hamilton, like a smaller tier city, but like if you live in the burbs, like in Ontario or like anywhere in Canada, really, I mean, it's a car is a basic necessity almost. But yeah, so that's another issue. The walkable cities, but of course, Matt, Robert Mosier in New York, he made the highways racist because the buses couldn't get to the rich neighborhoods. So that's it's you remember those tweets saying Pete Booty Man talking about it.
Yeah. But the small town thing though is inevitably true. Like if you live out in even if like not even at the burbs, but if you live in a place like where I do, where you have to consciously consider the fact it takes maybe 25 minutes to go drive to the nearest town that has like a drive-through or whatever if you wanted to like eat something and not cook, then like that's a serious consideration. And I mean, like Dallas is gotten only worse, both by so many people living there, but the rate of construction for just these brutalist apartments outside of like either I-35 or I-75 has just gotten really, really bad. El Paso is okay-ish because like if you live in a certain part of there, like walking is pretty manageable, especially in certain communities. But like, for instance, if you lived near downtown and you had one of those like really nice lofts by San Jacinto Plaza, it'd be a totally different story because they're focusing more on public transportation. The Metro City bus system is all pretty decent. So in a lot of ways, urban sprawl itself, by the nature of just population density and growth, does make walkability a problem. And then you're also in an incredibly low trust environment. It's pretty nuts. But again, this also reiterates the simple fact that as Michael has pointed out in the chat, this also does require you to just get off your ass and do things. Like I have a weighted vest. I walk around the length of the land that we're on. Like like a weighted blanket. It's good for autistic people to work out. And it's
oh my God, is that the truth? The weighted blanket thing? Is that true?
I wouldn't know. I don't own one, but jokes aside, but that's the point I'm getting at is that you have to actually work at this, and that's another thing that we just have lost, is that we have societally normalized quite a bit, like the mother in Heavy, that this is okay, this is acceptable, and then post social media age, post 2007. The radical sort of, fat acceptance or grievance studies from universities that sort of just took critical theory and added some lipid fat onto it, that here we are now where healthy every size is a thing.
Yeah. So is this true, Arthur Powell? Walkable cities in Germany are a dime a dozen, yet they're almost as fat as Americans. I don't think that Germans are almost as fat as Americans, but the older ones, certainly. I mean, I have some relatives that live in Germany. Weighted blankets recreate the comfy sensation of lying under heavy animal skins from our past, living in the European steppe. So it's very true that autistic people, they're truly connected to the primordial. That's probably what it is. So I know that was Varga's thesis about neurodivergent people. Oh boy. So yeah, Heavy is very indicative of this. But and Kat, you were talking about living. I remember like almost like years ago, you were talking about like what it was like living in a small town and like sort of the sort of like, it's like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna like move in a bigger house in a better suburb of Texas. And it's like there is sort of like a quiet desperation that comes into living in these smaller places. And I feel like it's a ubiquitous thing. And again, like, what we've talked about before on the show about like why, liminal space compilations and, Midwestern emo is getting popular again. Like why do these things like why do we have this need to express ourselves or express in media things that we are intimate with, but sort of like this weirdo nostalgic picture of things we are intimate with, because we recognize that even the small towns have changed as well. And that's very interesting. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, people go out less. I think, I don't know, some of these small towns are really depressing. Like, it's really characteristic of like in New England and in Texas, both like you have these towns of like 20,000 people and there's at least like a main street and there's antique shops and like a shitty cafe and a shitty Mexican restaurant. But now a lot of them are just like these, oases of like strip malls and McDonald's and Texas roadhouses. And there's the Walmart, right? That may or may not be in your particular town. There's some like Walmart that's standing in like an unincorporated county and you have to go and drive 20 minutes and that's a big activity. I mean, look, people are dunking on the comment about a brutalist. Well, Michael's dunking on it about brutalist architecture. I just feel like I understand why people aren't exactly thrilled to go for a walk in their parking lot. But I mean, it takes a lot of commitment, it takes all types. I'm privileged and I live in a pretty area, so I do go for walks. So I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking out of my ass here.
I mean, we're going to get clash regardless, right? Everyone's got a different experience, and some people, I think, given by political persuasion, it's going to be more of a get your ass up and move kind of deal. Which again, right? This stream
and Heavy's the least of these films, by the way. Heavy's like the tame one.
Yeah, this is probably the tamest film out of the three, and even the 1980 Fatso is. I would say Heavy's actually probably more tame than this one by the nature of it. But you know, we're this is 2 parts, 1 part autoethnography, 1 part movie review, guys. So
someone asked in the comments, is obesity a GAE disease? I said, yeah, I mean, obesity has always been around, but not to this extent, not to this character. So yeah, I would say so. I would agree with that. It's chemicals in food and water. So yeah, I really liked Heavy. I really liked it because having also been in the presence of attractive women as a fat person, of course not like I don't have an inability to talk to them like Victor does, but I can understand those sort of same sentiments of not wanting to entertain certain thoughts and feelings because you know they're going to go nowhere, and because you're so used to inaction your whole life, um just going for it seems impossible. And there's a scene at the end where she finally leaves to college, she sort of breaks the cycle, and he also breaks the cycle, and he just says, you know, bye, maybe you can come, you know, visit me one time. And it's like, you know, that's the final thing, that he has to go out on his own. And that's really hard. And we'll see with Fatso next, is that you know, when you're not conventionally attractive, it's sort of like you know, there's the pervasive procrastination, inability, and inertia for a reason. And but anyways, let's move on to Fatso. Fatso is an insane film, by the way. It's absolutely insane and crazy. Like some of the scenes in it are just like, my God.
That ending.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure we all have the same hot take about the end and certain other issues you're not supposed to mention. But
oh, good, we're not alone. I was like, oh, this explains so much.
Right?
Let me do the screen share.
So prescient. But let's I'll allow y'all to introduce it.
So this is from the 2008 Heavy, which was inspired by the 1980 Heavy. So this is about basically a fat dork porno creep incel who who has a porn and onanism addiction and lives and has like these creepy friends, and he lives. Yeah, I don't know if I can show that on YouTube. By the way, what he's holding.
Play it safe, Gio. Play it safe.
Yeah.
This film's nuts.
Yeah, this film is pretty nuts. Can I show this? I mean, they're in bikinis. I wonder. I could probably show it. Right. This is the 1981, by the way, with the Italian.
The Italian.
No, that's the Indian one. That's the
the Indian version. There are 3 versions of that.
I didn't know there was a Bollywood one. I just knew that I watched the 1980 and the 2008 one.
Yeah, the 1980 one is very, very is like super cynical. Like even more than this one, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like Dom Louise does a fantastic job, and I didn't know that Anne Bancroft actually directed it. I know that she's in it, but
this is the one. There you go. Yeah.
That one's just that one is way more cynical, I think, than the other 2 movies that I think we'll discuss. But
because he never, I mean, the thing with the Dom DeLuise one is that he never loses the weight. Like he doesn't recover. Yeah. He just finds a new mom.
Yeah, and again, and it goes exactly back
mommy
to
GF.
Well, it's the same thing with Heavy. Is that basically there's the familial motherly aspect to it that affects this, right? So, you know, like the Dom DeLuise one, right? Like the opening part of the film is that, you know, buttered bread every time that, you know, his baby brother, you know, urinated on him or something like that when he was a baby. So like grows up with the love of food and all sorts of jazz. You know, it's just it's concerns over diet and weight. And again, this is in 1980 is when that film came out, and I don't remember. Do they say his weight in the film? I can't remember how heavy he was.
Oh, I forget. Yeah,
wasn't he like 185 or something? I mean, Dom DeLuise is like also he's like 5'7". I mean, he's not.
Yeah, he was not a tall man.
Yeah,
it's sad because in real life, I'm pretty sure that he like ate himself to death.
Who, Dom DeLuise?
Yeah.
Dom DeLuise was a
well, I mean,
chef
he died at 79. He was he died of cancer, but I mean, it was strange because like he is well known as a comic actor. So like he's done, you know, stuff with Mel Brooks. He worked with a lot of Don Bluth movies. Like, he's well known for a lot of.
Oh, you there, Prude?
Oh no, did we lose him?
Oh no, do we lose him? Let me stop sharing. Uh-oh, I wonder if he disconnected. He's still there, but Prude, can you hear us? Oh my god. Yeah, maybe his internet's just glitching. So
all right, we can still carry on, and then if it becomes a problem, we could.
Yeah. So who asked in the chat, Louis Cachet, is this fatsploitation? Yes, it is fatsploitation. That's basically what it is. But do you remember Dom DeLuise is a famous chef on TV? Now he just sits at home with his. That was a Tourette's guy clip back in the day. Now he just sits at home with his ass up his ass. Oh damn, Prude dropped. Okay.
Oh no.
Oh no. Hopefully his internet comes back. So this this version though of Fatso is like insane. So essentially it starts off with and again I forget the main character's name. What's his name?
In the 2008 Rhino.
Yeah. What's his name?
Rhino. And then he has
Rhino.
There's all these like interludes where he's represented as a rhino in this sort of like Moomin-esque kind of alternate universe.
Yeah. Prude, you back, bro?
Yeah, my internet suddenly cut off on me. My bad.
No problem. So Rhino in this version, I was gonna ask you, do you remember the Tourette's guy clip of Dom DeLuise?
No, I don't.
He's like, Dom DeLuise was a famous chef on TV. Now he just sits at home with his ass up his ass. So, I don't know why, man. Tourette's guy was like my childhood. But anyways, so oh my god. So Rhino in the film, he lives in his father's rental house, if I recall. And he like basically is like this porn addicted incel. A lot of like hilarious scenes ensue from his him and his like grody friends essentially, well, they try to motivate him to get a GF, but he's like, he's fat. He works as a translator of various appliances and tools from I believe Norwegian to German or something like that.
Yeah, from German to Norwegian and English.
Yeah. So he's a translator. He has like having a stay-at-home job is another like indication of his own isolation, kind of like in Heavy. And he wears glasses. He's kind of like he can't talk to women, and hilarity ensues from this. So maybe if you guys want to take it from there.
I love how it opens because it does the stereotypical, loner, isolated, stay-at-home guy wants to talk to the pretty girl at the cashier, almost like, the ending of Heavy. But, he purposefully avoids the man on the other side, and he talks to her, and then it transitions to this bizarre comic strip that feels very familiar. The name escapes me. To where he's literally arrested by the horny police.
Yes.
I think that's why he's a rhino, right? Because he's like perpetually horny and everyone can see it.
Yeah. And he's also a comic artist, and at the end of the film he sends off his comics. And it has these like weirdo kind of like Robert Crumb-esque interludes, but it's very like psychedelia, like monocolor, like a dual color 60s. Like there's this rhino part at the end of this comic, which is very like insane after he does something to himself. We'll get to that. But yeah, so there's these interludes. He's arrested by the horny police. I'm kind of murky in the middle of the film because I watched this quite a while ago, a few years ago. So yeah, so take it away, guys.
Well, yeah, and I mean, he does it gives us a good view of his lifestyle, which is the 2008 edition of the internet porn addicted nerd with his like giant, old style like CRT monitor. It's just like it's very much of the times where you could still, get skin flicks and watch dirty DVDs. This wasn't completely on the internet, but yeah, it shows that he goes out of his way to be this like sexually frustrated loner. His best friend looks like a 70s porn actor with like the stash. His
best friend is like a pickup artist type
guy
too.
Yeah, Zapua.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, so what I thought was actually surprising, and I don't know if you guys are going to buy this, but I think in real life, so here's what ends up happening throughout the film. A beautiful, like Eva Vlar looking 20-year-old moves in with him. And he has this conversation with his best friend, the pickup artist, early in the film. And he's like, if you live with a woman, this is what the pickup artist is saying, you'll eventually fuck her. And so this woman, this woman ends up moving in, and she's really kind of cruel to him. He has to listen to her having sex. Like she makes fun of him behind his back. It's a really weird dynamic. Her older, as it turns out, married boyfriend eats all his food. So at some point, she like inspires him to start losing weight. And there's a scene where they have a party and she gets drunk and she sort of straddles him. And this becomes like one of his jerk off fantasies through the film.
Yes.
And what surprises me, and I don't think you guys will agree, but I really think that this would have happened, that she never ends up sleeping with him while drunk and then either denying that it ever happened at all or saying that he was a creep. And I think that was probably that's just a different movie, but I'm really surprised that it doesn't happen because I don't think she would stop at just the teasing. I think she would have at least like shown her tits or something.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't he fuck it up though? Because like she's drunk and she's crying, like, I mean, throughout the film, right? Like her family man boyfriend goes back to take care of her kids and whatever, and like the affair ends and she's all sort of heartbroken about it. But at the party that they go to, he sort of like picks her up and he's having like the moment where be the fantasy where, like he wants to do something. And she says, let's sleep together. But like, they're just in bed and his own fantasies take over where he doesn't even act on the fact that there is a drunk woman in bed with her. And he's also plastered, I think at this point, but not as much. And instead, like she wakes up to him jerking off rather than them actually doing anything.
Yeah. But what I interpreted that scene in the
it's the end. I mean, I think we should.
Yeah.
So I think let's go back to
where they're like smoking weed through the fleshlight.
So I mean, he goes through all these trials and tribulations. At some point, when he thinks he's going to be able to close with her after this party that they throw, where he feels like a really cool like Euro guy, looks like he's going to the discotheque, whatever. By the way, it takes place in Norway. She's Swedish. I don't know. It's a funny sort of thing, but that she sets him up on a date, and I think that's also really important.
This is really indicative. This one,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Her cruelty is just.
By the way, can we swear though, and still get monetized? Prude, do you know?
You're past the first 30 seconds. Just don't go Fed posting. You should be fine.
Good. Yeah. Cool with the anti-swearing remarks. Anyways, but where where he freaks out on the woman that he set up with, this other fat woman?
Right. So he shows up he's clearly disappointed that Malin doesn't want to date him. So.
And if there's any fat women listening to the chat, I would never do that to you if we were ever on a date. Wink. So
it's like, so she has, and this is the conversation that every ugly person and attractive person who have like some kind of contrived friendship where you're the supporting infrastructure for the attractive person's self-esteem has had. Where the attractive person is like, I'm just going to be a vol-cell. And you're like, I'll fuck you. And they're like, nah, he's my ugly friend you could fuck though. And I mean, who else has? I've been in that situation. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, so she sets him up on a date. He goes there. There's a beautiful woman at the bar. She's dismissive of him. He turns around. The real blind date is, a kind of slovenly fat woman. And he's rude to her and he's embarrassed to be with her. And he tells her, he's like, people make fun of us. Like we should be quarantining in our homes, eating our fat food away from people's view. Like, what the hell are we doing?
Oh my God. Oh,
and he reams the roommate a new asshole. He's like, what the fuck do you think I am? Why would you do that to me?
Nemitz containment policy. It's
yeah, I mean, it was incredibly cruel, and I mean, I think that's the catalyst for him to like start working out and taking better care of himself, which doesn't go well either. And I mean, I think he also is just like, fuck this. Like there's a scene where he eventually says, screw it. I'm not sleeping with her, and I'm going to try to follow my, pickup artist friend's advice and go to a prostitute. And even then he chickens out of it and just decides to start, bettering himself. Like he walks all the way home, I think, from the whorehouse back to his residence.
No, but that's the thing. I think like when it is kind of interesting, the discourse around like quote unquote sex work and like not attractive people, because it's like on the one end you do have your dignity, and I don't care what people say. I mean, it's kind of like, oh, why don't you just go to a prostitute? It's like, no, that's not a realistic option for a lot of people, because that, like, there implies sort of a defeat there. It implies sort of like a giving in. But at the other end, I know like it's kind of weird how, and well, I mean, default, you have experience with these people, but like it's kind of weird, like the pro sex work discourse. On the one end, it's like, I'm pro sex work and they fulfill a vital like worker commune role in society for like frustrated people. But on the other end, it's like, well, they should have a right to deny you because you're a creepy fat incel. It's like, they have feelings too. It's like, well, it doesn't make any sense to me, because it's like, take your pick. It's like either, sex work is real work and they fulfill this need of like giving release to like people who don't usually have options in life. But on the other end, it's like they have feelings too, and they should deny you for being a crappy, loser incel.
Well, I don't think anyone's arguing that like, prostitutes should have the right to turn down money to provide a service to an ugly person, right? Like, I don't think
right.
I think so. I don't know. I mean, I actually don't know what the arguments are, but I would be really surprised if like, sex worker advocates or whatever were like, if you're sufficiently ugly, we're not going to service you, because these are the same people who say that, like estheticians who wax people's, intimate areas should offer those services to anyone regardless of their physical makeup, right? So right. I mean, that's a huge contradiction. I think as long as it's transactional and there's currency being exchanged, that they're cool
right.
with it.
But the issues around like unattractiveness and sex work, quote unquote, I mean, I hate that term, but like, it's always a sticky issue, because it's like, it's not, how shall I describe it? There's an issue of like, I think, dignity there for both the sex worker and the person who is seeking them out because they can't find like a willing partner. There's always like going to be that dance around it. There's always like sort of like this question of your own inner worth, I feel. But
I agree. I mean, no, I mean, I think where I do really agree with you is I think that sex workers, especially like very vocal ones online, they don't realize that like that a man's only intimacy is through purchase is like, I mean, that's heartbreaking. That's life ruining, not because, it's like, it's just your conception of yourself, and they have no sympathy for that. And that I agree. It's like, have some self-awareness. Like the reason that you're stigmatized is because, like half of the activism you do is about just this issue. How could you be so myopic?
Well, I think it's because they have a very like deconstructed materialist view of sexuality, that like there is no boundaries. It's very like after the orgy type of thinking around sex. So therefore, to have any sort of like shame around it, like they want this perfect like quasi-commune society where it's like, in the Soviet Union they had it too, like it's no. In fact, there were laws against it in certain periods of the Soviet Union. I know Brezhnev. I mean, Prude, you could probably fill me in on that one, but like there, this whole idea of like the free sex, after the orgy, like there is no boundaries, there's no transgression is essentially the norm. They feel that to have any sort of shame around how you achieve the goal of sex, they're like, oh, that's irrational. That makes no sense. But for a man's inner worth, I mean, you can't like get rid of that hard wiring that, like, you know, as a man, you feel that you are fulfilled or you are worthy of it because, you know, again, like Delicious Tacos talks about this when he says that, you know, the first lay is like the ultimate one because that's like the getting over that eschaton of like being viewed as a sexual being. But, you know, when you're a fat person, I mean, you are not viewed as a sexual being unless it's some like the issue around exploitation and fetishism, which I was reading this article from Vox by this fat woman, which was quite good in that regard. Although they have to like layer it with like typical leftist activism. Maybe I'll put it up on screen when we're done in the film analysis. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, what do you guys have to say about that? I mean, Matt, what is your standard sex work?
Oh boy. Where to begin? So the man's self-worth thing is inevitably true. I find it interesting when individuals that advocate for some kind of prostitution or transactional exploitation will say things like, "Oh, you know, there's a lot of male sexual frustration, which can then lead to anger or violent action." Which
lead to Saint Elliot.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Yeah. I mean, they would never advocate though for like women who want partners to
of course not.
to purchase that. I mean, it's just I think they know the truth and they're too proud.
Well, they do, and they beat around the bush around a very uncomfortable issue, and that's the thing that I find so interesting. So when people say like, you know, we should provide prostitution or those kind of services to men who are despondent and lonely. I mean,
state mandated GF, yeah.
Well, yeah, right. And I mean, Delicious Tacos has talked about that as well. But the issue, right, is that they've made it out to be that a man's sexual frustration is his only frustration. When in a modern world, that's not the case. The other issue, and of course, the discourse around it is never ever. Actually, I think a lot of times when people talk about quote unquote sex work or prostitution, I don't think it's ever done in a very straightforward lens. It's very they do dance around a lot of the more uncomfortable issues because it is an intimate act. It is an act that does hardwire one's brains. This is why every movie that's about no strings attached or friends with benefits is the fact that these people are purposefully trying to resist the hardwiring that comes
catching feelings.
Well, catching feelings, which is like, okay, great, you've pathologized the normal bodily reaction to sex, so fantastic. And
on After the Orgy podcast, I mean, Kat here and Personality Girl, they went into that with I forget the exact episode, but the catching feelings thing.
Yeah, it's our second episode.
Yeah. What is Personality Girl doing, by the way?
She, I mean, she thinks everyone from Twitter is degenerate and kind of is off in her own world. She's above us now.
Good for her, though. She's probably right, though. I mean,
she ascended, if you will.
Well, there's plenty of us degenerates on Twitter, I'm sure.
So maybe we get her on the show.
But no, the thing with all this discussion, right? He backs out of it because even though he's fat and overweight and all that sort of stuff, like even he's like, I'm worth something better than this, which I think is. Like it's maybe the only upside to the film is that at least the guy has the self-dignity to not sleep with a prostitute. Like, good on you at least. But I mean, the rest of it, right? He does. Oh man, yeah. Geocells are never going to recover from this one.
Yeah, I know my cred is slipping away.
But that's the thing about the film, and that, you know, he's surrounded by, and he's trying to, of course, everything for him is about sex because the sort of, whether it's the new ladism of the 1980s, or of course this is in the wake of movies like American Pie or Revenge of the Nerds, that it's something that does come into perspective that everything around a man's worth is centered around sex. And I think this is a big consequence, of course, writ large of the sexual revolution. Sorry for going on a more of a trad oriented rant, but as like someone who definitely slept around when he was in like college and had a good time in his younger 20s, you know, it does put a number on you where it's just like, oh, what am I doing? Right. Because at the end of the day, it's the same thing that every movie kind of catches on about. I mean, hell, there's even a musical about it, Company, where, you know, like you can be a bachelor all you want and get around, but at the end of the day, you go home to an empty bed. Or for in the case of Rhino here, at the end of the day, you're going to wake up and go to sleep to a blank screen of your computer or television that has a skin flick on. And there's even a part in the film where like his dad tells him that this girl's moving in with him, that he wakes up with his hands in his pants after a session with himself where he onastically releases all over his like face and glasses. He gives himself a facial.
That scene was crazy. Yeah, I remember that. It's like, oh, like that. Oh, yeah, it's like sticks on his glasses, and it's like, boom, like.
There is so much product there too. I mean, that's
I know. And he's taking those. It's like he's taking those weird pills, you know. Like
or never mind. I'm not. But I'm sure the man answers himself. But like,
all the trad people left their audience.
But I mean, it's funny because when she moves in, right, he tries his best to clean up around, but he walks in, and all of a sudden it's like he opens the fridge and he's got some of his like porn stuff in there and whatnot. Like you're clearly getting the relationship between the two very early on, but he doesn't sleep with her. She wakes up to him literally jerking off to his own fantasy of being with her.
Yeah.
And again, throughout all of the film, there's also these weird, like almost like Kafka style, like illustration or situations of where it breaks into animated comic form of his comics that he's working on. And he's just like, screw it, I'm going to get laid. And like, he's got all of these various forms where like all the fatties have to like wait on the sidelines of basically running with the bulls, but it's running with like the hot women and the horny men chasing them.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, only the uglies and fat people get to watch. They don't get to participate. And it's just it's surreal to a point where he's like so tired of his frustrations that he tells all the other fat people, he's just like, look at all of you here talking with your products and whatnot. Like, there are women that need to be slept with. You need to go do your job. And it's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. But then you do have that, like, you do have like at the same time you have this self-loathing and self-hatred, but you do also grow to like resent and hate other fat people who are like have like experienced like an elaborate series of copes to deal with the fact that you are overweight. Like when you do see other fat people that don't want to like work on themselves or whatever, it's kind of like, oh man, it's like it reminds you of the same thoughts and feelings you have. And I think like any sort of like community that has a problem, like if you have like a certain mental illness, I think it's the same mechanism of like, I don't like to be around people that are similar to me, because then it will sort of like enable my own thoughts and feelings and like inner frustrations and like lack of motivation. And you sort of like give into those. And so that's why I think he freaks out on the fat lady that he was set up with on a date where, he's like, we're disgusting. This is terrible. Like it's, you know what I mean? Because I hate to say it, but nowadays, like the solution is not like maybe as a fat man, but like, oh, why can't they just stick with each other? It's like, I don't know, these like even fat women nowadays are looking for 10 out of 10 chads. So I don't know, maybe that's my own perception. But
I think that's cope, right? Like I've, my own dating history is very unconventional. No, well, let me tell you, I'm someone, I'm someone with a lot of like fat women friends, and it's usually after
you wait to tell me this now, Kat.
I would never subject. I care about you too much.
Oh no!
But I mean, it's just like there's this great scene in the pilot episode of Girls where Lena Dunham talks about how she feels so grotesque that she just disrespects herself even more.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of fat women end up doing that. And what they do is they sabotage dates with like average looking guys. And then they cope by pretending they need someone who's perfect. And then ultimately that's what ends up on the dating app. So because they know they're not going to get that. So it's a way to keep, if they're alone, they can never be rejected ultimately. I mean, some women are certainly delusional. I agree.
We'll get that. We'll get with Pig Hag. We'll get into that. Yeah. But that is a weird, like, to explain the psychology of it. Cause I know with fat guys, it's like either you remain in a state of perpetual inceldom and quiet desperation, or you cope by basically accepting anything that comes down your way, or you become a simp and you, like, I feel like I feel like Rhino, if he like existed nowadays, he would be like giving money to an OnlyFans girl, like a 5 out of 10 OnlyFans cam girl, and that is like no solution as well.
If he posted his art, I mean, there's a chance that like he would have weird sex with one of his fans.
Man, I'm banking
I was about
on
to
that.
say he could definitely have made bank commissioning furry art if he had just like waited a few years for like deviant art to really take off, or for affinity or something.
I was thinking like watching this movie, I just had this like just bizarre. I mean, this says more about me than the film, but this bizarre thought where he's like posting these all on Tumblr and then just like having sex with like weird alt girls. And, just like becoming like a scene sex pest or something, and like I mean,
gets canceled because of a YouTube documentary about his
like,
behavior.
Yeah,
right. Like
he like documentary on him.
He has like a bunch of like perfectly like consensual sex with like weirdos who are looking for clout, and then like 5 years later, there's like the viral Medium post.
Oh my god, maybe I should open up a DeviantArt. I mean, I heard it's coming back, so
Jesus
maybe I should do.
Geo, you're better than this.
No, I mean, I'm banking on some weirdo schizo femme-cel right-wing e-girl to slide into my DM. I actually had an experience where someone did, but that's another. It'll never work out. But anyways,
there you go.
Maybe I too can marry someone. No, I would rather sunset than marry someone like Pantsu. But that's
So do I want to get to the ending? Because that's, to me, the most interesting discourse here.
Mind blown by the take on coping mechanisms. No, it's true. Like you have this weird repulsion to other fat people because you know that deep down inside, if you do end up like submitting to their cope, that you have the same feelings yourself. And therefore you almost have this hostility towards them. But then you also have this, like, I remember before I started trying to lose weight, like starting to like seriously examine my health. Like, I know I should probably not say, but I'm an open book. When I was, this was around 2018 when I got out of grad school, and I knew that the PhD thing wasn't going to work out for a variety of reasons, because things were changing at this time. And I just sort of like let myself go, and I was like borderline diabetic, and I didn't want to take pills, and I didn't want to do anything, and I didn't want to change myself. It's like you start to like, this is when like the real isolation takes hold. And I was like, the day I told you two this in private, but like the day that really woke me up was when I finally decided to go get blood work done and go see my GP. And I was like literally like a hair away from being like, considered diabetic. And that was when I was like, man, like I have to change. Like this is not good. And if you like see pictures of me from 2018, like when I first started like facing, I look terrible. I admit, like I look, a lot of those streams are gone nowadays, but like, oh man, that was terrible. But it's like, yeah, around that time when you're in the depths of it, you have this inability to change yourself because you figure that it's literally impossible. I've always been this way. There is no point. And it's not going to net me the hallmark of normality, which is to have to get married, to have kids, to have a normal life. It's like, what's the point? And and I feel like a lot of people, in not just fat people, but also like people that are, have various mental illnesses or have various other issues. It's like, you can relate to that sort of thinking. But I feel like this time nowadays, when it comes around the issue of the very visible problem of being overweight, as society in one end tries to normalize it in a very terrible and I would say destructive way. And I've had threads about this on Twitter, many moons ago. On the one end, you try to normalize it. On the other end, it's like we still have this thing about like fat people are bad, fat people are evil, fat people don't have that like inner control. And there's a variety of reasons why people become obese. But at the same time, it's like, the other side of it being like, oh, you just have to accept people. That's also equally destructive. And I feel like these movies like Fatso play to those dichotomies of people around you are basically enabling you. Then you try to change, but that doesn't work out. And then it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like that
he doesn't change his environment. That's the thing.
Yeah.
This is that he tries to change it, but he stays in the same environment that has been his coping mechanism or a self, reinforcing feedback loop of like, oh man, you can just be like us. Let me tell you about my exploits. Let me keep you as the secondary. Let me keep you as the fat friend emotional support vessel that I tease you with my exploits. He doesn't get out of that environment. Instead, he just does the same thing that he's always been doing. He's still surrounded by the people that are, telling him to do it. Like, there's the bizarre scene of the Fleshlight talking to him about like, just submit to inceldom. I'll always be here for you. You don't need to worry about the woman.
God. Oh God.
But,
yeah.
I mean, it's there. And even when he tries to change and work out and buy the tracksuit and all the workout equipment, it doesn't matter because he doesn't change his environment. He doesn't get a new set of friends. He's still surrounded by the same people. So even though he's got this like sense of bravado and like he could act like a real debonair, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you're still more or less environmentally and in a lot of ways, really just the same person. You only change this tiniest facet of yourself.
Shall we talk about the ending, the very pathetic ending? The ending that explains everything. But you know what? I would be doing a disservice to the film if I if I introduced the scene.
Sure. So it's the morning after she wakes up and finds him jerking off to his own fantasy in the same bed with her. And
didn't she have a drunken sex with her ex that like she grows
something like that.
Yeah.
And this has been recurring throughout the film because at the opening part of the movie with the horny police putting the rhino animated guy into the cop car is that he's like, oh, well, clearly, we should just get rid of the source of the problem when they like pull out a blade.
And we know that the rhino horn has always been an archetypal symbol for the phallic.
Virility. It's used as alternative aphrodisiacs and things
Chinese
like
medicine.
That. Yeah. And so he says, screw it. I'm just going to cut it off. And there's a scene where they're arguing over it. And then in his rage, he does it, but almost.
So, but to set up the scene though, he has this drill bit. He has this Dremel cutter.
A Dremel tool,
that he's like translating the notes for in German and English. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And the thing is on it. I think he did it unintentionally. So they're arguing. She calls him a creep and an well, I don't think she calls him an incel, but she calls him.
No. She just calls him a creep and a sex pest. And he says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to cut it off. And then she's standing in front of him saying, do it, like egging him on to do it. And he does it on accident. It's not fully removed. He goes to the hospital. It's saved. But it does change.
There's a scene where he's lying back and there's blood in his pants and
face.
Yeah. And again, mimicking the Coombe shot of before. Now it's the final act of sacrifice. So, it's on his face and his glasses. So then he's in the hospital with his. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's also on her. I mean, he finally ejaculates on her. But it's the blood. It's blood is on her hand. Blood is on all women's hands for rejecting him and making him castrate himself. And she becomes a woman.
My twisted world. Right, posting right there. Yes, the blood is on the hands of all of you femoids that should be punished. No, I'm kidding. Kidding.
Mm-hmm.
No, but she eggs him on. But the reason I say, is he worthy of these, thoughts and feelings? Because I think that there's this weird transition when this happens where he has to lose his rhino horn. He has to lose his symbol of the phallic to go from treating women as sex objects to then going to viewing them as human beings with their own thoughts and feelings. Because really throughout the film, what I found interesting was she becomes this weird muse for him. And she becomes this motivating force, this pixie dream girl. But at the same time, she has her own, I'm a hot mess. I have sex with married men that I regret because it's not going anywhere. And he's there. And the scene in the bed where she, falls asleep with him is that, to me, what I viewed it as, he's almost like the comforter. He's the gay best friend. And he's the sexless, or I should say, not sexually a threat to her, because he's half a man. He's not a real, and unfortunately, this is some deep truth here, is that a lot of fat men that are in the presence or have a friendship with beautiful women, as you said, Kat, they are viewed as almost not sexually threatening. And you can have great relationships with women in terms of this emotional bond, kind of like in Heavy, right? but you're still not viewed as a sexual threat. You're not viewed as like a commodity, an item because of your stature. And so I feel like he's rebelling against it by saying, well, you know what? If I'm not a sexual object of desire to anybody, then I might as well just dethrone this thing that has motivated my resentment and my frustration and my longing and my creepy incelish porn addicted um misogyny. And it's like, it was a really powerful moment. But then when he awakens out of it, when he's in the hospital, then he realizes like he has to become something more and he has to view life as something more. And I feel like that is why I felt like it was. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, what's your take on the ending? I mean, you two have different takes, obviously.
I mean, I think I agree with you. I think, I mean, what's obviously like most significant for now is that choice and where that choice has come from.
Yeah.
And what makes this movie dated is that he ends up choosing to overcome that, and he doesn't castrate himself. He moves on and he tries to become a man. And he, you know, in the final, one of the final scenes, he hits on you know, a beautiful cashier, and he doesn't stoop to that. I mean, Fatso 1980 and Fatso 2008 show that like he is not going to date the fat woman. He's not going to pick up the scraps. He's not going to he's not even going to go with the woman who's been pumped and dumped. He's going to transcend and know his worth.
Yeah, exactly. And Matt, what did you think of the ending?
I thought that it was interesting because I feel like in a lot of ways it showed the alternate path to what we see today. So I mean, clearly he has this experience of almost losing something that, hey, you kind of need to have as a man. And like how the film ends, right? He recovers, he talks to her and says like, hey, the doctor says, they prohibited sex for like 4 weeks or whatever, or something like that. And he walks off, right? And he sees all these naked women, but it doesn't matter. Like he's just going about his day. And but I mean, it's interesting because he chooses not to go all the way with it. And he chooses to, have that come to Jesus meeting and realize like, oh shit, maybe it really is me, compared to where I think there is a predatory trend, I think, where it's the opposite, where a lot of people nowadays can choose to identify in a certain way, and that way to get closer with women. That's why there's a lot of discourse you see around certain trans issues of like suck the dick bigot and things like that, where it's like that. And unfortunately, whereas this is the alternative where he sort of realizes and snaps himself out of it, that this ideation over sex and the ability to not get any, that there is more to being a human being than just getting your rocks off with somebody, compared to where a lot of it is sort of a sexual strategy in and of itself, taking advantage of a movement. But I feel like it sort of predates a lot of the current discourse over this issue.
Yeah. What I interpreted that is, I remember I was watching this film with my best IRL friend, and he was actually the one that told me to watch this. We watched this together, and I'm like, you bastard! How dare you did this to me? Because it's funny, because right after this one, we watched 500. The week before, we watched 500 Days of Summer, and that was another film that was just like devastating to me. So like,
oh wow, you just watched 2 movies back to back that'll really make you more make you not appreciate women at all.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. So at the end he interpreted it, and I thought that was very profound, when he was like walking in the park and he sees like the dancing naked women that are almost like these ghost like entities. To me, it was sort of like his what did Josh say? He said that like in a way he lets go of his sexual desire, and therefore he has conquered, through the symbolic cutting of the horn, he has conquered his own frustrations and his own need, and therefore he can appreciate women on a more of a erotic, and I would even say metaphysical level. But maybe that's just me reading too much into it. I mean, I think like the ending's quite interesting. And then he also gets up the courage to like ask out the cashier And does she say that she wants to go on a date with him? I think. Yeah.
No. I think
she's engaged, but she would.
she's engaged, but she would. Yeah.
Whoa.
So it's kind of a play off of. I think it really kind of almost plays off of how Heavy ends, because it's just like, do you want to go out with me? And she's like, oh, I'm engaged, but you seem nice.
I have a boyfriend, but I would though. I would. I mean, but when women say that, do they mean that, or is it just like being nice? I don't know.
It's ambiguous. She really is engaged because she has the ring. I don't know if I believe it, but he believes it, and I think him believing it is meaningful.
Right. But I agree with Remnant over here. The problem is that women cannot change their nature. Therefore, the incel question's kind of mute. But yeah. There's the same problem with feminism's all count productive cope and resentment. Remnant, one day, I don't care if you have to use a voice mod, you must come on Content Minded or a digital archipelago. That would be amazing. So yeah, so I think there is this sort of overcoming of his own condition, and even though he doesn't achieve what he wants, someone clipped you saying I have a boyfriend. No, I think that it is quite an interesting film, and I feel like it does, in a lot of strange ways, it does sort of foreshadow the incel. Because when did incel discourse come really prominent? Was it 2013 or was it?
Incel discourse was contrived, right? So the incel exists much earlier, but it's contrived in 2014.
Yes. After Elliot, peace be upon him, did his terrible deeds. So, but yeah, I really think Fatso is interesting because there is a level of self-overcoming that happens. And it's when I first watched it, I remember because my friend, he was consciously like, oh man, you have to watch this film. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I in for? And yeah, it's very interesting. I feel like when you are given sort of the friendship of a more of an attractive woman as a fat person, or as a man who is not conventionally attractive, at the same time, the bargain for being not viewed as a sexual object is you are afforded a more of a stronger emotional connection than normal men would. But the cost of that is that not going anywhere, which is I'll say no more. So, but then I guess the opposite side is if you are a man who is for lack of a better term, a pussy slayer, then it's you lack that emotional connection. And it also equally does not go anywhere beyond the physical act. But then it's
that's a choice. That's
that's a choice. Yeah.
I would really say the inverse of this movie would be that Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Scarlett Johansson film, Don Juan. Don John. I don't know how they did the title for it, but I mean, in that instance, he's an internet porn addict and doesn't really change despite being a womanizer, compared to this guy constantly acting on his sexual frustrations and his own internet and pornography filled thoughts that he opts to change. Although it does take almost a significant cost of basically removing his own member there. But yeah, it's an interesting film that predates a lot of, because what incel comes around Gamergate, and this is where I think the stereotype of the angry video game nerd who doesn't get any and he's attached to pornography also comes around. And again, this is 2008, so this is really before a lot of big porn sites and things like that are just ubiquitous. I mean, not to say that you couldn't find it if you wanted to. I mean, obviously you could back then, but it was despite today where the jokes and the memes are about 2D women are better than real women, or that you can just watch whatever you want. He's still attracted to women, right? He still goes nuts about an encounter with a woman and an experience, where I feel like nowadays the internet porn problem has gotten so bad to where there are men who will end up with women that can't even achieve climax because of their own hardwired part of their brains in pornography. This is a totally different era, but still highlights really and shows the forerunner of the problem.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of rad femmes on Twitter that they'll quote tweet people like Med Gold, and they'll be like, "You are addicted to porn. You are." It's like you only view women through pornography. It's like which is true. Unfortunately, a lot of young men do have that pornified view of relations between men and women, and it is a huge problem. But yeah, it's just like my do you know my friend Anna on Twitter, Byzantium, Byzantium?
I'm familiar. I think I have her blocked.
Yeah, she's from Turkey. Oh, you have her blocked. Okay. It's funny because like she quote tweeted this one guy talking about like some like 9 out of 10 is this or that, or some like mid discourse. And she's like, "You are a baboon that belongs in a cage." And I don't know why I found that so funny. Like, you are a baboon that belongs in a cage. Listen, we love our rad femmes, folks. Don't we love our rad femmes, folks? So if she's listening to this, I love you, Byzantium. I mean, I found that one tweet particularly funny. Like when rad femmes go after like men on Twitter, it's quite hilarious. I don't know. I find humor in it. I don't know. It's oh boy. So default, you there still?
I'm still here. I actually, speaking of fatness, I I managed to eat lunch on this stream without making any like disgusting sounds or anything.
Nice.
Bravo.
Yeah, thank you. So shall we go to the ladies now?
Yes, we've been talking about men so much, so I anticipate the view count just plummeting. But I don't even know if I could show it because you could probably show it. She just has a bra on YouTube, right? It's like, okay, let me see if I could find a good photo. So this third film that we're featuring now centers around a fat woman, Pig Hag. So I mean, look, it's weird.
2019 film, indie film, written and directed by two gay men.
Yes.
About a fat woman in her mid 30s. She's 36 in the film, and it centers around. There you go. And it centers around getting ghosted. And my only take for this film, and this is my take for this film, despite the fact I wrote 5.5 pages for it for notes while watching, is that gay men create a femme-cel.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think that's a really important point because nobody is as hard on women as gay men.
Yes.
Exactly.
Subject to change. Got it. Yeah, correct.
Gay men are better at hating women than women are at hating themselves, and that like even like a scorned heterosexual man is. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, we could never hate.
I'm thinking we're back
as much as gays.
Gio is scaring people. When was I scared?
I don't know. I was talking about the desires of fat men. No, no, it's true. I mean, this explains the Perfume Nationalist extended universe. But
I don't know a thing about that one. I don't know anything about those guys. Who is that?
You don't know Jack the Perfume? Oh my god!
Gio. But moving right along.
Kayfabe. Don't worry about it. A lot of the Red Scare gay guys that hang around, they like. Never mind. Moving on.
And so, what were you gonna say? Go ahead and.
I was gonna say, like, a lot of the gay men that hang around the Red Scare extended universe, they also they feed off of like Anna and Dasha cattily chiding other women, and it's like, I don't know, this is a weird dynamic when it comes to the right wing gay man. So no, I'll say no more. I will say no more.
But like
the right wing gay man.
They exist.
Homofash
is very real. But so like I think that you can just see the film dripping. See, this is the thing. I don't know if the film being written by two gay men, like if they're trying to experience or provide a realistic take, because there's no part of this film that felt relatively realistic at all. Its dialogue felt really flat and just like the angry swearing all the time. But then again, I thought to myself, no, this is incredibly realistic because I had a roommate like this once who was this overweight, sexually frustrated, lonely that she would even take the time to reply to her trolls and stuff like that. And it does illustrate that she's 36, she's craving male attention. She's jealous of her married sisters that have things going on, but it's very hard to have sympathy for her, as she is the sort of matriarch of these 4 gay men that are in her life. And and she's loving Guns N' Roses. We're getting this sort of middle class or lower middle class white woman, fat white woman in her mid 30s, and she's concerned about wanting
go
children.
to any go to any oldies butt rock concert, you'll find
and she gets mad at Axl Rose broke his foot or something, and she's drinking Natty Light at the concert or in her car. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, they've gotten the peak lonely white woman, lower class white woman, perfectly
she's
done.
She's also a registered nurse, right?
Yeah, she's a contract nurse.
Yeah,
which I think is also significant. I mean, I thought the only unrealistic thing about the movie was just the filth that she lived in. I didn't understand. Did she live in Mexico? What the hell's going on with that apartment?
She lives somewhere. She says the film says Los Angeles.
Right. I mean, it's, what I'm saying is the actual set design for her apartment is it's like a horror movie. Which
no, but I believe it though.
Pure grody femme-cel. This is why.
True.
But me and Kat, we were okay. We talk about the incel. This was after the Adam Lanza episode. And we were what can we do? Is there any media that depicts the femme-cel? And Kat's have you ever heard of Pig Hag? And I'm what? What is Pig Hag? And what? Then I just had to watch this film. But it does, I think, it's a different side of the femme-cel. It's not the emaciated wannabe anime girl living in filth, watching yaoi in a messy room. It's more of the obese woman side of it, which is interesting.
I think it's more real somehow, because the girl watching anime probably can get sort of a greasy boyfriend who hangs out at the movie theater or whatever. I'm showing my age here, but this woman, it really is remarkable. The guy who she sleeps with is a totally ordinary guy, but he really is out of her league. And that attachment she develops is extremely real. And I've seen this happen 1,000 times easily.
Whoa. So basically she's going to this GNR concert and she meets this I don't know, they met at the pool in the hotel, in the motel.
No, they met because she's crying and drinking on the sidewalk, and he passes her by. Yeah. He passes her by and says, "Sorry, dude." Basically misgenders her, and she freaks the fuck out. And she's I am a woman, and she grabs her tits and it's just look, and she's I'm sorry, I only saw you from behind, because she's
and
big.
I think an important note here too is women who look like that, when they're only they only register as someone to acknowledge to most men.
Yeah.
If they're notably in the way and you're move, right? Or if they're misread as men, which I think is sort of an underrated point here.
Do you mean that they are not viewed as women in toto, or they're
not viewed as women? But if they are clocked as women, they're invisible. There's no need for them, right? Nobody wants to acknowledge a woman who's that ugly, and it kind of just is what it is, and it's a really difficult thing to experience. And so it's interesting that he doesn't acknowledge her first as a woman; he acknowledges her first as a man, so that he sees her as a woman at all at any point in this transaction. It is probably part of why she becomes so attached.
Yeah. Well, actual physical help, he actually watched the film with us. So he said it was terrible. I mean, it was a bad, in the way it was made. It definitely was not the sort of, I think New Line Cinema led the way in the 1990s with what they called new queer cinema, Gregor Kana, the Teen Apocalypse trilogy, which we probably will cover on this show. It depicted films made by gay men for gay men, and not just gay men, but also queer relationships that are like ambiguous. I mean queer in the academic sense. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
So
but it's interesting though about this because
is this film just gay men making fun of fat women?
Well, no, because the film does have a back and forth, a little non-linear break where it does show the night that they spend together and her like over attraction where she's like 36. She does think about children. She doesn't want her uterus to rot up inside of her. And she's saying all of these things to a guy that she only just met. And they had a few drinks in the pool and she wants to sleep with him because Lord knows how long it's been. And I don't think that the film is actually unrealistic in the way that she carries herself with profanity.
And by the way, the film opens with her getting trolled through text messages by some
guy named Mitch in parentheses from the internet, with matching. And I think it was very realistic about how this is common for older women in their 30s who maybe don't feel accomplished in life through traditional means. I'm not just talking like marriage and relationships, but like having someone in their life going steady or having male friends. Instead, she is this like matriarch of 4 gay men that coddle her and sort of help her with everything that she does. And so when she's alone with this like guy, this dad bod looking dude who's bald, who had a wife, has some kids, although we don't know how true that is.
He looks like the husband from This Is Us of the fat sister.
Yeah, no, he does.
Yeah. What's his name? Toby? Yeah.
Toby. Yeah, I think Toby. But I mean, afterwards, right? And he like quickly leaves her, and like he's trying to already come up with an excuse because like he said he flew, and then he has a car, and he says that he's sick, but she's a nurse, and she throws him away. And I thought this was like the perfect, because like Kat, you wrote a great piece in the American Affairs Journal where you were reviewing Jonathan Franzen's Crossroads, and you asked the question in there, what are the social consequences of a hurt person in regards to like a sexual context? Like, here's your film in a lot of ways.
God.
Like what are the social consequences? Like, well, this woman is wrecked. She's alone. She can't get with anybody. She's jealous of her like married sisters, even though she's like kind of coping with like, well, this man wants her to like, just cook and clean and have sex with him, and he's the breadwinner. Like, all of these things are sort of put on display. And so her idea of escapism when she's ghosted and nothing really comes out of it, she rips up the bandana of his that she's got. She does buy the trailer, and she becomes basically a femme-cel with her 4 gays traveling around California and the country. And it's
like lesbians moving out to the country.
Yeah.
Very depressed. Yeah. Like there's this moment where she's talking about it with them. Like, okay, I don't know what the dynamic is with the how shall I say this? F-slur hag, and gay men.
You know what I've always found striking about that dynamic? It's very similar to the dynamic between a beautiful woman and an ugly woman. It's like they gas them up in this way that's totally self-destructive. Like, well, it's not self-destructive.
Yeah.
It's destructive. Like you can't just tell it's just like you can't tell the fat man you're doing everything okay. You can't say that to the fat woman either. At some point you need to compassionately push them towards change. But the F hag position is a way of trapping yourself in bad habits.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think like, but what do the gay men get out of that relationship with women? Do they like get emotional support, or like what is it? Or is it like some weirdo like power fantasy? Like I could never understand why. I mean, maybe because I know from the woman's perspective, like having a gay best friend is like, part of my French. It's like you have this like narcissistic supply in a way. Like it's a man that doesn't have the same like sexual threat as other men. But like, what do gay men get out of that? I don't know. I would have to ask.
It's interesting. I don't think I've ever had a close gay male friend. I've had close straight friends, but I've never. But then like I'm not glamorous enough, but I'm also not abject enough to attract gay men as a woman.
That's right. Gay men, they never go after mids. It's always like stunningly beautiful women who have gay best friends, or like absolute pig hags like her.
I think Matthew Perry pointed out in the chat revenge on the projected image of their mother.
Whoa! that's amazing. I don't
if
know
I could
if it's
snap, I would. That's great. I love that. I think that's right.
Oh my god,
that's fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Barry.
Whoa.
But yeah, no, I love because there's just so much in here where again, like the gay best friend cadre or gay harem almost. It basically just keeps her perpetually infantilized in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Where her sister, the voice of reason, is correct. Where like the sister on the phone call after she sleeps with him is like, well, she says things like, "I met a boy." And the sister's just like, well, you're being a little wild, you're getting intense. And she snaps at him. She's like, you don't want me to be happy. I'm happy here. Like, just go back to your wife or your husband and kids and whatever. And she just like swears at her all the time. And how does this end? She's crying. My gays have ruined me. And so
that was an amazing scene.
That was a confession. I loved it. It was fantastic because, like, I'm sure that kind of phrase or commentary is definitely true. And so, what's her solution? Well, maybe if I act like them, it'll be fine. So let me just present myself ass up and let anyone have my way with me. To which, of course, she's not like gay men. Her attempts to be like a gay man are useful or useless because even after the third guy that she's been with, that's used her for basically to pump her and dump her. She like gets out from the covers, she reveals herself, and says, "Do you want to stay and watch a movie?" And he's just like, "What? Fuck this!" and like leaves. And like she that breaks her, and that's it.
So,
and so what? How does it?
Like, you skipped over
with the film.
Yeah, like, but did you skip over the part where she? Oh my god, how do I describe this? Which was a really weird scene. She becomes a. She does a bit of sex work herself in a way, but not like traditionally. You know what I'm talking about? That one scene?
Or what? She just like posts herself and says like, "Here's my apartment, come in."
Yeah. There's a lineup of men that do the deed.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I don't
saying.
even think for money.
They just do it to do it. And so,
oh, okay, yeah.
And what's that's the thing that breaks her though. Is like the third guy that finally like comes in, finishes, and she's like, "Do you want to stay for a movie or something?" And he's just like, "No," and leaves.
Nope.
And I basically breaks her, and that's how more or less it transitions to the end of the film, where she gets the camper, and her gays are just going along with her, and she becomes the femme-cel.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a pervasive sterility to it. Because like it's almost similar to like This Is Us. And for those of you in the chat, the only reason I know about this is because my mother used to watch this show. So she would like force me to watch certain what's funny? I would always say that on Twitter. And they're like, Gio, I don't think she forced you. I think you just are generally curious in this like trash media. I go, yeah, maybe you got me. But I mean, This Is Us became unbearable because it's like literally just like bourgeois excess and it's terrible. But there's this like arc where like the fat sister, I forget her name, is like trying to have a kid with Toby. And like there's like the I think one of the first like media depictions of like older like fat women who like have fertility issues. And like that's another thing. There's always like, again, like what Kat was alluding to, there's always like this pervasive like metaphysical and even physical sterility to like the older fatter woman that's like past her prime. It's like this weird dynamic. And then now that she like in Pig Hag, she like fully submits to it by going on a road trip with her gay besties, and she becomes like the queen of the flock. But then the gays, they're not like her real children. They are just a replacement. They are like this already sterilized version of her children. So it's like, yeah, very archetypal content going on there. But maybe I'm just theory selling over an objectively terrible film. But
no, I mean, I think you're right. I don't think it's a terrible film. It's not a movie that I ever wanted to watch more than once. I'll be honest. I watched it.
Same.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, when I heard about it, I think this streamed because South by like I didn't watch it on the South by Amazon thing, but I did end up I watched it when I was in the middle of the desert all by myself. So that was a weird, yeah. So that was a weird sort of thing. And I just remember being like, I was excited to see it. I'm like, I don't want to ever go through this again. And then I watched it again a couple of weeks ago for this.
Why were you in the middle of the desert alone?
I got scared about COVID. I wasn't totally alone. There's one other person with me.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, like, we were pretty isolated. But yeah, we had an episode in March, and then we got over it.
That's another part of the movie too. Is the desert.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. But it's a weirdo, like, ascetic expression, but for. Well, there has been women mystics and anchorites that have gone into the desert.
Ironically, the most prominent one I can think of off the top of my head is Saint Mary of Egypt, but that's a sort of the inverse of this. But what the film does with the desert is she talks about like funerals or whatever when she's talking to what's his name, Nick or Toby or whatever, because he's a funeral director. That's the story he gives. And so she's like, I don't like funerals. Like, I'd rather just go into the desert and be picked apart by buzzards. And so after she gets ghosted, she goes to the desert and she like thinks about it, and she's gonna like wander off into the desert. And she gets 5 feet in there and she sees like some animal or whatever and freaks out and like wobbles back to her car in her flip flops. And she's like, okay, fuck that. Like, I'm just gonna figure something else off.
Yeah.
And it's just even then, right? It's an illustration of the suicidal ideation in women doesn't have the same level of commitment as men do.
Yeah, it's true.
So I don't think that this is a bad film overall. I really do think that this is a confession of what gay men can do to women.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I agree. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but I do think it is an expression of remorse, because there's there's also this sort of like fake maternal energy that the gay best friend brings to the abject woman. And the gay man can't be maternal. I mean, it's just he could be loving, but he can't be maternal. And I think that shows that perversion.
Look at this comment. Femme-cel, incel. I wish I could put default in a prison cell. No,
wait, who said that? Which one?
Never mind. Don't worry about it. I love how, like, I don't know why I found that funny.
No, sorry. It's good. I just can't even see. Oh, that guy. Okay, so this guy's a persistent troll of mine. He's been following me around since TPG and I did ATO. He's a real pain in the ass, but you gotta love him because some of his comments are actually pretty funny.
I found it funny though. I have femme-cel, incel. I'd like to put her in a prison. Women prisons they're not as nice as people make them out to be. Actually, do you know that? Women prisons are actually pretty terrible.
Yeah, I don't know anything about prison. Hopefully,
I a lot of prison help you there, Gio.
Yeah. Apparently, women prisons. Well, they're bad for different reasons. There still is a lot of predatory behavior going on, especially from guards, but also like other women. And there still is like gangs. And apparently, I don't know why, but women's prisoners, they're not as creeped out by having sex offenders among their ranks in the GP yard as opposed to male prisons. If you have bad paperwork on a GP prison yard in a men's prison, it's not going to work out for you. You better just go to the kindergarten yard, as they call it. The what do they call it? SNY, special needs yard. That's where all the like chomos and other people with issues go, which is terrible. But women's prisons, apparently they're comfortable with having and people don't believe this, but there actually is women sex offenders. People don't believe that, but it's true.
How could people not believe? I mean, there are like women pedophiles, right? Like that's
I'm trying not to say the word cat, but yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. No, but yeah, there are women cheese pizzaists. But people don't believe that. They think that women are incapable of.
What about the lost prophets thing? I mean, that was like that. I mean, they get women when women are evil. They're really. It's bizarre. It's. I mean, it's just I don't have words for it.
Do you remember that Gamergate porn star? You remember?
I don't.
Carrera.
So. Maybe I don't know. No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Apparently, her and her boyfriend were doing that type of activity. Now she's in prison. So all the other. Gamergate people had to kayfabe their interaction with her. Jesus. So Yeah, her name is Carrera something, Mercedes Carrera, something like that. Anyways, apparently there was this couple who were these like SJWs that debated Sargon, where the guy ended up redacting his girlfriend. Do you remember this, Prude?
Oh, that's years ago at this point.
Yeah.
What 2015, 20
Yeah, they hosted a debate between Sargon and Christy Winters.
Oh yeah, no, I remember there. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently the guy was a psycho and he like ended up redacting his girlfriend. So
good lord.
Yeah. Those are the days, man. Those are the gotta watch the Lauren Southern documentary to truly appreciate those stuff. Oh,
if
you know what's
really
funny?
wanted to fuck with her, they would report her for using music that she didn't license.
Yeah. Well, you know about that default, so that's
Oh, like there's a comment in there too, where here in the chat, where my favorite is in Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun. The Torturers Guild didn't allow women to join because they take the torture too far.
Yeah, the skeptical feminists.
There you go.
Gene Wolfe, Book of the New Sun. Yeah, I watched this Pill Eater thing on Gene Wolfe, the one book. I think it was Book of the New Sun. Didn't allow women to join because they did the torch too far. No, it's true. Throughout history, there has been a number of women torturesses who have very like disturbing sexual sadomasochism going on. I know that there's that one in Louisiana back in like the with her slaves. There was also the woman in Romania that what's her name? The torturess.
Oh, Bathory?
Yeah, Bathory. Yeah. That's where the band name comes from, actually. And you know what? Our good friend Alex Kashuda has this episode with Jeffrey, or another good friend of ours, Jeffrey Schollenberg.
Yeah, Outsider Theory. It's a great episode. It's really interesting.
I think I told Jeffrey, I should tell them this. I was listening to it while I was doing a woodcut, and I ended up cutting my finger, and there was blood everywhere. So like I was like had to like rush to the washroom, but I'm like, oh, this is a really good episode. So I like had to like bring my phone with me, even though my finger was like gushing. Like I just remember like listening about this amazing episode about Bathory and like what she was doing and this like sexual sadomasochistic torture. And like I cut my finger. I like didn't know what I was doing with the gouge. I like, misdirected. Oh man, I remember that for some reason. But yeah, that was a great episode of Outsider Theory, and also my episode of Outsider Theory about Francis E. Deck was also amazing. And I will promise that someday, hopefully soon, maybe by September, I will get Jeffrey Schollenberger and Alex Kashuda on Content Minded. So we'll see what happens.
They'll say yes if you just ask, right?
I know, no, of course, yeah, of course. I actually messaged Alex. I said it's funny how we both had Helena on our shows at the same day on the same week. So yeah. Amazing. So Pig Hag was very interesting. I thought it was good because there is really, I think, like not a lot of literature, like it's starting to, but there's not a lot of media that depicts the, there is some like depicts like fat undesirable women.
Misery, I think
Misery
is so good.
What's funny? You mentioned Kathy Bates, because I was gonna say fried green tomatoes.
Yes, I agree. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But then doesn't she like lose weight and like then she has a boyfriend or something? But like, because Kathy Bates, she's really good at that. Like Dolores Claiborne is like another one, but like that's where like her cheese pizza husband is creeping on their daughter, and that was a great film. I love Dolores Claiborne. And Misery is another one. Misery is a great one. But I don't know if we wanted to end by reading this Vice article. This is by, I believe I have her blocked on Twitter. I must have her blocked on Twitter. This is by, she wrote a book actually about being a fat woman, believe it or not. Oh, I know, right? Aubrey Gordon. You know this person, Kat?
I feel bad about how much I orbit left-wing media people.
So you know about her then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm like, I read all the shit. But yeah. let's hear it, Gio.
Okay, so let me do the screen share. She wrote a book actually called wait, let me get to it. So this is called what am I doing? Fumbling all over myself here. Again, I'm not used to the fasting thing, so forgive me if my mind is a bit elsewhere. Yeah, here we go. She's such a pretty face. Culture tells us bodies like mine are impossible to love. Don't believe it. That's actually one of the more decent illustrations I've seen at Vox. So, have you interacted with this person though? She wrote a book. Let me go down. Her book is called What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About fat acceptance. So I wanted to, let's see, what's a good line here? So, she's going through about like her experience as a fat woman. What's a good line? So about dating sites, how, you either get rejected or you become like the subject of fetish, despite having what we describe as a pretty face. Shall I actually Google her? Would that be too mean? That'd be too mean. I'm doing it. Yeah, I mean, she's not that bad. I mean, if she lost weight, she'd.
Yeah, she's.
I don't know.
Fat, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
she's fine looking. She looks like you're sort of just like lesbian music teacher or something. Like really like snowed out and like that, and your 6th grade chorus ends up singing it or something.
Yeah, for YouTube purposes, this is not targeted harassment, by the way. This is just us like, yeah, she's decent. Like, she's not like. I mean,
she's fine. She dresses well for her size. I mean,
yeah.
My problem with these people is like
she's just a hideous leftist. That's the problem with her. That's
all these people know the truth, right? Like they're just not. It's just I look. I know like nice, like terminally polite like Canadian people who won't date fat women, right? Like it's just an instinctual thing.
Yeah,
it's way harder.
Yeah. No, she is right though. I mean, but more than that, the messaging mirrors so many experiences I've had before. It echoes fraternity brothers. Oh, hogging competition. Prue, did you ever do some hogging in your day? Oh,
he's AFK.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't look at the. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
is hogging is that real? There's no way, right?
I would like to think that it's not real anymore, but certainly in frat culture. See, in Canada, we don't have that, the frat thing. But I know that there was a thing in frat culture. Like I know among bands, my friend actually toured with a gent band as a merch guy, and he said that like there'll be a thing like you try to like get the fattest woman you can find or the most ugly woman, and it's like, oh, look at what I did. Sort of like I know that it was a thing before. I don't think it's much of a thing now, but I want to find a good quote. So she said that despite having what described as a pretty face, I will constantly be reminded that my body was impossible to want. We were dating at the height of popularity of sites like Hot or Not, TV shows like The Swan. Everywhere I looked, bodies were openly critiqued and ranked. And so again, this becomes, as you know, Kat, the hallmark of like Jezebel, like Exo Jane 2010s confessional feminism is like the culture is obsessed with ranking women, which I mean, it still is. Let's face it, it's true. But this was like the height of like these type of shows. 2, 3, 4, his thinness alone earned him much higher standing. But it wasn't just like him. I had learned that I was undesirable to almost everyone. For years, my body took center stage in my dating life. Dates constantly commented on my size, a knee-jerk reaction to the discomfort with the desire. One time I came to experience any attraction as untrustworthy, as if danger lurked nearby. In retrospect, I worried about my body's safety, as if only violence could develop an appetite for a body as soft as mine. I was sexual curiosity. Desire for my body like mine meant my partners were irrational, stupid, or resigned to settling for less than what they wanted. In the years since my first breakup, I had struggled to accept interest where I found it, no matter how a potential partner looked, no matter how enthusiastic they were, I couldn't help. And then of course she talks about anti-fatness, but also that it's like a fetish. I briefly dated a friend of a friend, decided to return to dating apps like Bumble for less than a date. When I matched with someone, I said hello. He said, oh, and of course I can't say this on YouTube, but like basically he's looking for a fetish lay. Fraternity brothers with hogging. Messages that receive my body like tissue, plentiful, accessible, disposable, trash. Fat people aren't the only ones whose lives lives the repercussions of anti-fatness in their relationships. These messages are also laying hard with people who date us, love us, marry us. You don't want to be seen with a fat woman. Desiring fat people is something. But again, this again is very female centric. It's not like what fat men go through something similar, but not to the same. It's different. It's different. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I'm always, and this is really bad of me, but like, in the 2010s when like fat women started saying like, oh, I get catcalled so much, there's so many chubby chasers. I don't believe it. I like just straight up don't believe it. I think that they're probably more likely to be completely invisible, and because that's more humiliating than being sexually objectified in a scary way, they ham up the few instances. Like, I think this is probably embellished.
Yeah. I mean, like all things at Vox, but like all things of this era, it's probably like all those confessionals are probably embellished, right? Apart from like,
I mean, they have to be, because it's just like, I've never been obese, but I've been like, I'm like a little bit like chubette, I'll say, and like
chubette,
right? Like I'm not full chubby, but I'm in the county, and it's like I've experienced like huge bouts of invisibility, and I'm like, look, if that's what I'm getting, there's no way there's just like, secret underground chubby chasers who are, catcalling these women nonstop. They probably have much more miserable existences.
So while maybe some of this is cope, I would, and some of this obviously probably is embellished because the men do view women of after a certain size. I mean, it's subjective, but I mean, it's sort of like the Justice Potter, analogy. You know it when you see it, where it just they get turned off the same way that once you notice a wedding ring, they become invisible. But I wonder how much of this though is also maybe code switching, or perhaps the slight whistle blow or dog whistle for perhaps other people that don't mind it. I'm thinking of stereotypical interracial relationships.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. That's
that element. That element hasn't been addressed, and I know
there was a recent episode of Soft White Underbelly like that, by the way.
But I mean, but it's real though. That's part.
Yeah, it is real.
Is the thing that needs to get addressed, and maybe that's why they're like, I'm getting catcalled so much. You're getting catcalled by people that you probably wouldn't sleep with, or that you may have an issue with on a racial or ethnic basis. Because like, if you live in a heavily diverse city, or if you live in a city of a primary one group over the other, like El Paso or Dallas is getting this way as well.
I'm gonna make a shit-lib comment. I think that the reason that fat white women don't like the men who tend to be attracted to them, it's a class issue more than it is another characteristic issue.
Maybe.
I think those men the men who would have that interest in that way tend to be, working class or middle class at most. And I think that's the issue.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. It's got like something about like, trailer park Americana about it that probably is stigmatized. So here she says, despite being surrounded by women of all sizes, viewers options instead to drive the desired into safe, siloed and one-sided experiences away from the prying eyes of the world around them. While Ogus and Gautam's research speak only to sexual desire, not romantic attraction or aspirations, it certainly indicates that our cultural script around size and desire, that is so that thin people are inherently desirable and fat people are categorically undesirable, are rooted in more perceptions. So then this is the typical like social constructionist fat acceptance argument. Many men who are attracted to fat women find ways to express their desire while sheltering themselves from judgment and stigma, including secret sexual relationships with fat women, too afraid or disgusted to elevate these encounters to full-fledged relationships. In secret relationships with fat women, Virgie Tovar, recounted the patterns of one such relationship of her own. Everything was intimate and magical when we were alone, and then all of a sudden it would stop being that way. I would go from being a charmingly eccentric bohemian to being monstrously crass brother. When attracted to fat people is disgust, attraction. Fetishism is never far behind. Fetishism isn't itself necessarily pathological. I would love a chubby chaser that had a fetish. I don't give a shit. Like, you know, you take what you can get.
But you say that now, right? I mean,
right.
Where does your meaning go behind that? I think this is something that women, I think, are a little more tuned into than men are.
Yeah,
true. Cat, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I would say that, you know, men don't have a problem with it because I think we're a little more hardwired to think with the head down below than the head above. Whereas I think when women reject men, they will have the calculus in mind of like, oh, you're looking at me nothing more than a piece of meat. Whereas I think when men finally click and have that moment, it's far too late into it.
I also don't think women objectify men in the same way. Like,
really?
I mean, maybe like, you know, like women who are obsessed with like K-pop bands probably like bother the Asian men in their lives. But I don't think that like the chasing manifests in the same way. I'm trying to think. I was once accused of only liking someone because he was Mormon. That was weird. And then I was like, I wonder if that's true. It was actually right around the time that I watched Pig Hag, which was I was so horrified at the accusation. I was like, would I like him if he didn't have that religious baggage? I don't know. But I don't know. I still don't. I still don't think women do it in quite the same way.
Yeah, perhaps. But here, like, of course, this article is interesting because it is in Vox, and she has to give the cope about sex work is real work. To be clear, there are attractions to fatness that take such specific forms that they're undeniably fetishistic. Feeders, for example, long to feed their feeties. So if you look at certain YouTubers like Foodie Beauty or Amberlynn Heard, oh my God, terrible. Driving pleasures from watching their fat partner eat, in some cases from watching them gain more and more weight. Squat fetish. Desire to be sat and pinned beneath the bed. Oh my God. Some fat people are happily engaged with these fetishes and find fulfillment or paid work in their role. Some do not, but many fat people have fetishes. Fetishism thrust upon them without consent. If there are any chubby chasers in the chat, you are objectifying me. That is why you watch my content, not for the brilliance of my words, but never mind. Fat fetishism has deep roots for many fat people, especially fat women. From some size, desire, shame, sex as a rat's nest, hopelessly entangled. People who internalize anti-fat stereotypes, including the pervasive culture belief that people are categorically unattractive, people are unlovable, are more likely to binge eat or are survivors of SALT. Fat acceptance spaces frequently include heartbreaking stories of people whose partners kept the relationship secret. Yeah, we've all seen. It's actually a decent article. I don't fault it. It's a pretty decent article.
I do wonder how much of this though, because like the things that were listed in there, this is because
the chat's going crazy. Oh my God.
Oh, there you go. The Pierce Brosnan ultimately.
Pierce Brosnan.
But no, I wonder.
Chud meets Chud.
Oh man. I'm glad chat's having a good time. But no, I wonder though, and this is the thing about this article and the thing about class, but also the internet thing where she's listing off these fetishists or chasers or whatever, is that we don't have the most accurate gauge. And I mean, yes, we can tell by view counts or purchasing and things like that. But I do wonder how widespread of an issue this is, because I think that, you know, most people will try their hardest not to have a settler mentality or like, oh, I don't want to settle for somebody. But at the same time, right, people people have their own, you know, vices, but I just wonder how much of this is something that really does manifest
you know what I
in the
think
real
probably
world.
happens? I think there's a lot of men who are willing to be with fat women, but who then are used to saying, you know, who are used to making comments about women's bodies in an intimate situation. And they'll say things during the intimate act like, you know, look at that fat ass, right? And and just not knowing how to compliment the woman. And that's probably interpolated as
you're fat. Yeah.
Right. But it's like meant in this awkward way.
But are there more men willing to be with fat women than there are women to be willing with fat men? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. It's a good question. I mean, it depends on what kind of fat, right?
Yeah.
Do you think so? Well, what did you say, Prue? Do you think that women?
I said I would think that there would be more men out there willing to be with a larger woman than there are women that are willing to be with a larger guy. By the nature
Yeah.
of that, I think men, just because of how we're wired, I would say that that's the case. There is just
Sex
men.
is sex, in other
Well,
words.
yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
but the question, and this is where the article is right, though, where people want to keep the relationship secret, right? Is where the long-standing joke that I've heard from other men is that like fat women is like being on a Vespa, like it's fun to be on, but you don't want to be caught,
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
friends. But I mean, men will still do it. That's the thing. Whereas I think women, are far more thinking about other standards as well, not just perhaps sexual fitness.
Right.
I mean, I will say I've seen more women just do absolute like mental acrobatics to justify why like a bottom of the barrel dude is a catch than the reverse. I mean,
Maybe.
I think men will let women get away with murder if they're sufficiently hot, but God forbid your pants overweight, you know?
Maybe.
Okay, 25. Let's say
maybe this is where you're also right about the class issue.
Yeah, but I don't have the normal
class
perception.
of men would be okay with a much larger woman doing whatever they want if he's still getting some. That I think has a role to play in it. Whereas I think a wealthier or a man who has some power and authority, even if he's a slob, right, can definitely pull.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're. I mean, I'll say this: like, wealthy men definitely prefer thin women, and
Yes.
as you become more middle class and working class, then that's when you can afford to be obese, even.
Well, I mean, that's where the highest percentage of obesity is in the country, is within the lower and working classes of the country. So yeah, that I would wholeheartedly agree, because even like wealthy nerds, like we saw this most perfectly with sort of just the Jeff Bezos post-divorce type kind of, where he's done everything that he can, whether with drugs or not, to get ripped. I mean, he's tried to rearrange his image in the same way that even Elon Musk was basically Norwooding and balding, and when he was starting with PayPal, and now he's got a full head of hair and everything. I mean, there's something that's definitely there, and I mean, you can also see this in reflection to certain A-word elective procedures when it comes to dealing with pregnancy, that there's a bell curve distribution of who gets it, both the poor lower classes compared to wealthy women.
Yeah. But I wonder, like, who has it worse? Now that we've analyzed this, is it like, but like saying who has it worse, fat men or fat women, it's kind of like not the point. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean,
I think there's different. I mean, there's different kinds of harms. I don't think one has it worse. I think both are probably, have to live with, will my partner cheat on me? I don't think that's worse for one or the other. They both have to deal with being visible. They both have to deal with like not being seen as a fully sexual being. There's so many things. I think men, I don't even want to say men are more humiliated, but I think maybe it's just different kinds of humiliation. I would not say that a woman is more privileged because she can, get a guy to come, ass fuck her with a bag over her head. But I mean, like, that's not all right. Sure. But like I think being reduced to a wet hole is just as bad as having to go see a prostitute.
Probably. Yeah, that's true. Men are more likely to be cooks on occasion. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, like I alluded to that soft white underbelly episode recently, that really, that woman was a psycho. Did you see that one, Prude?
No, I did not.
Oh God. Yeah. It was the cuckold one, like that. Yeah. She like controls this dude's life, and it's terrible. It's just, I was disturbed, put it that way. And the guy
there's
just
like Dr. Phil episode of Gotta Send You. You're gonna lose your mind.
Yeah. I used to watch Dr. Phil on the reg, but then I'm like, why am I doing this? So, oh my
because
God.
It's Jerry Springer with a slight facade of
emotional,
upper class and emotional investment.
Yeah,
like that. If you want to peek into the soul of America, I really do think sometimes you just need to turn on Dr. Phil.
Yeah, pretty much. Even like when they're doing like politics episodes, like they had, who did they have? James Lindsay or Matt Walsh on?
It was, I think it was Matt Walsh who was on, but I mean,
Yeah.
Dr. Phil is just like the long-standing tradition of like the 1980s shock jock and talk
shock
show
TV.
host.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
between your Phil Donahues, Oprahs, and Morton Downey Jr.'s of the world, I mean, who just went to Jerry Springer and Dr. Phil, and I guess it's come to the internet in some degree. But yeah, I mean,
Internet blood sport,
it really is a voyeuristic form of entertainment of some of the more hurt and cruel aspects of modern life.
But that's what I mean. Like, that's why I'm so crossed with soft vulnerability, because like, in the one end, I agree that like you have to tell these people's stories and you have to like, but then it becomes this like weird, like bourgeois, like vicarious, exploitive entertainment, like exploitation media. Like it becomes like I think like, and maybe that's not the intent of what's his name, Mark Lilla, but like, it's like the same conclusion is always the same. It's always like, I know I repeated myself. The same conclusion is always like this liberal mushy acceptance. Like, if there was no judgment in the world, I wouldn't be this way, or I'd be like comfortable with the fact that like I'm on the edge of civilization. It's like, no, that's not the solution. That's like, I don't know. I get morally enraged when people talk about don't judge, don't judge, don't judge. It's like, you have to judge because these people are living like self-destructive lives. What are you gonna do? Like, I don't know. Maybe making too much of it. I don't know. They're addicting, though. I will say they are addicting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, exploitation and misery porn is unfortunately always going to be addicting because it's just like, look at these people that have it worse than me. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was a part in Pig Hag where I did just sort of, I just kind of laughed at the misery, where I was just like, I shouldn't be laughing at this like fat woman crying and having an asthma attack, basically. But at the same time, like, you kind of can't help but laugh because I feel like.
Well, she's also not. I think if she was a sweetheart, you'd probably.
But she's not likable. That's
she's unlikable. I mean, and I think that's the cruelty of the film that we. I mean, it's a cruelty and the genius because they never make an effort to make her likable, but you only see these like glimpses of her being human. But you could theoretically sit through that whole film and just be like, forget this one.
Fellas, do you think we should have a surprise guest on who wants into the chat?
Sure.
Gonzalo Lira has requested to be in the chat. So
I mean, let's not make it about Ukraine, but I'd be happy to talk about the topic.
Sure. Let's.
Yeah, it's just.
I wonder. I'm curious.
He told you to check your DMs.
Yeah. Let's. I'm sending it right now. So
no.
There you go. It's StreamYard. I wonder. Yeah, he has StreamYard. It's probably. Yeah, he's doing because he has streams in his channel now. I just saw the recent one with Alexander McCoy. Yeah, James Lindsay. Whoa!
That one felt like out of the blue.
That was out of the blue. I mean, I know I'm all critical of James Lindsay.
What do you think it'd be like if James Lindsay was your dad, your stepdad?
Oh my god, that'd be terrible.
Can you imagine?
Be terrible.
Well, he'd be trying to, engage with his stepchildren with like, do you want to see my swords or something? Just like
you go to Oberlin for the semester and you come back to James Lindsay.
Oh my god! He would. But would he send his kid to Oberlin?
To Evergreen? I'm gonna write fan fiction where like James Lindsay's kid goes to Evergreen or Sarah Lawrence or something.
Does James Lindsay have a kid?
Yeah, I think he has 2 stepchildren. I don't love making fun of him because I think he's a really nice guy. I don't agree with him at all. I think I don't agree with his theories, but I do think he's a nice guy, and maybe it's his social media presence has done him more harm than good.
Yeah. We have Gonzalo Lira, my good friend. How are you, my friend? How are you?
Pretty good. Now let me tell you about Ukraine.
Oh. Can we for the purposes of, can we say blue yellow country instead? Because I'm
blue yellow country. Oh, wow.
Because I'm kind of annoyed about Yeah.
Let's talk about BY.
No, let's talk about anything else because it's talking about it 24/7 is exhausting. So default when I heard you say, let's not have him talk about Ukraine, I'm like, completely agree. Completely. No, that's perfectly fine. like talking about one thing all day long is just exhausting. At the end of the day, your brain starts leaking out of your ears. You know what I mean? So anyway, how have you all been?
Good. I've been content renaissance is moving forward. How have you guys been? Well, Prude, you're going on Pete Quinones after, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I've got a little over an hour.
Yeah, and default, content's going strong.
Yeah, I mean, I need to start my work day at some point today. And speaking of fatness, I need to go to the gym. But yeah, everything's going well. I always on the verge of burning out, but that's that's life.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so you want it on stream, so the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh no, I just had a great stream with James Lindsay, as a matter of fact. We talked for like 2.5 hours. Smart man. And it was just a lot of fun because I'm doing this new show called The Roundtable. And it's supposed to be like an online salon. It's flowing conversation as opposed to having, like, I don't want it to be like all structured. I want it to sort of like, when you go to a dinner party and you just start randomly chatting about whatever you find interesting. And it was a lot of fun. And James is a very capable guy and very, very smart and very well read. And so it was a delight. You guys would get along, Gio. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually tried on we tried on our older podcast to set up a debate between James and Alex Kashuda because they had this big spat on Twitter.
About what?
Because about the postmodernism thing. But
he called her a pomo fascist, which I don't know.
Who called who a pomo fascist?
James called Alex. Yeah.
Is he a pomo fascist?
Alex is a woman. I would not. I think she is whatever the opposite of postmodern is. I don't know all the fancy college terms, Gio.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. I mean, James is an interesting figure. We don't necessarily agree, but I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice to talk to him one day. I don't know. Prudentialist. I mean, you would want to talk to him about certain things, but yeah.
I mean, I would love to pick his brain on some of the literature and his take on things. I know that my disagreement with him would mainly be on like teleology, just because a lot of his takes I find, at least based on what he's written, to be more from an atheist perspective, which I'm not.
Hey, Prudentialist, good to see you again. I just want to know why you changed your name, your brand. Weren't you Charlemagne?
No. Charlemagne is a very separate person. Although that's a running gag that Charlemagne, myself, and a few others are all the same guy.
They'll come from the academic agent sphere. Yeah.
Yeah, but no. Charlemagne is still working, but he's in the process of a move, so he's
usually in the chat too. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's out in the middle of nowhere now, though.
Academic agent hates me because back in 2017, I just said that, the whole higher education thing was a scam and that nothing useful was really being taught to people, except maybe in some of the elite universities. But for the most part, people were going there and they were just getting loaded with debt. And academic agent hated my guts ever since, I never understood the guy. Is he still around? Is he still putting out content?
Yeah, he's been busy. He does his 3 weekly shows. He put a book out on elite theory, and he's been following the Duran and your appearances on there as well, actually. So
yeah, the academic agent of 2017 is different than the academic agent.
Oh yeah,
I feel. Yeah,
definitely two separate people.
He's definitely he's not a libertarian anymore. He's much more of like, what would you say?
I would say he is a perennial traditionalist, is what I think is the best way to describe him nowadays.
And plus, like, he's had a falling out with academia as well, so that's another thing. But
why? What happened? Why did he fall out with academia?
What happened? Prudy got doxxed, or what happened?
I believe so. Is what had led to him more or less making this his full-time job.
Yeah.
Oh, he got fired.
Nah, once fired. I don't know. I wouldn't want to gossip. He's been good to me, but yeah. Like I I mean, in 2017, if you would have said that to me, I would be kind of offended. But now, in hindsight, I mean, I agree. It's not a good place, man. I was actually talking.
What's not a good place?
Academia, the way things are nowadays.
Oh, it's garbage. It's been garbage since the 90s. And I saw it like at Dartmouth in the mid 90s. It was going down the tubes then, and it's garbage now. And the shit that they're teaching. Have you seen the syllabi of the courses now? It's just ridiculous. It's a joke. It's I can't take it seriously. And I frankly, my degree was worth something once, because it took effort and grit and hard work to get my degree. I'm awfully proud of it. But now, you just sit there and stare. It's basically high school, public high school, but you pay for it. You're going to graduate. You're going to get a decent grade, and you look fine on your transcript. You'll get your money's worth. You'll get an empty accreditation. I'm sorry I feel so strongly about this, but it's like I had to work so goddamn hard for my goddamn degree, and now people get the same degree, with the honors that I got, but they didn't do anything for it. It just pisses me off. I recently had a conversation with my thesis advisor. I've stayed in touch with her, all these years later. And she was so disappointed in the standards of the people now, and we kvetched about that. It was kind of funny, but at the same time kind of sad, So yeah. But anyway, what about you then? Go ahead.
No, I was asked what you thought about the stream, our movie.
Of which streams?
Were you listening to our discussion of these films? Or?
No, which films were you talking about? I'd love to hear.
Oh yeah, we were talking about these indie films with fat people, and But how was your stream with Lindsay though? What were you guys talking about mostly?
Oh, we were talking about the same old. The world's going to shit. World Economic Forum. Life sucks. We got to get out of it. I mean, the usual. But no, I want to hear about the thing about the films and the fat people. That sounds much more interesting.
Yeah, we covered 3 films. Heavy, which is a Cindy film from 95. This other one called Fatso, not the 80s one. It's like this Scandinavian one. And this other one called Pig Hag, about this femme-cel. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no.
I haven't seen any of those pictures, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I know. But
the first one you mentioned, what was the name of the first one again?
It's called Heavy. It's with Liv Tyler and I remember that guy. I remember the actor. Something Taylor Pruitt or something like that. Vincent Taylor Pruitt, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Vincent Taylor Pruitt. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually see the movie, but I remember hearing of it.
No, it was great. Because it basically depicts life in small town America.
When you're in hear that? Do you hear that?
Is that some missiles going off?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's Russian artillery.
Oh my god.
Do you hear it?
Yeah. It's those that one particular system they have, the multi-fire one. Whoa, that's surreal, man.
That was cool. It's coming from the southeast. Because I can see some glowing. I think it's the southeast of the city. Yeah, because I'm near the center of the city, and so yeah. That's cool. But I'm sorry, default friend. That was unintentional. That's a lie. I told the Russians to start start their artillery fire when I got on because I just wanted to annoy default friend.
You have a connection.
I hope you're staying safe. I think I have to start hopping off the stream though.
Yeah, actually.
I'm
gonna have to wrap up. Actually.
Okay. No, I just want to say hi. And keep on doing what you're doing, Gio. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. We have to maybe discuss business sometime.
It's business. What business? There's no business to talk about. About what?
Nay, Jesus Christ. Invite the man on your show.
Content minded. One day.
Yeah, sure. We'll set it up and we'll do a stream on the roundtable. That'd be great. And the same for you guys, Prudentialist, Default Friend. I'd love to have you guys on. It would be a pleasure, really, sincerely.
Yeah.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah. Because his specialty is foreign affairs too, so it could, yeah.
Oh, that would be great. Prudentialist, whenever you like it. And Default, what would you like to talk about?
I don't know. Let's mull it over. I feel like it's usually Tumblr or dating with me, but maybe we can do something out of left field.
Yeah,
you resurrect the old Coach Red Pill content. That could be.
Yeah, but you guys have my my Prudentialist. I don't know if you're on Twitter or not, to tell you the truth. But if you are, I'll follow you, and you guys can DM me, and we can set something up. I'd be delighted. It would be a pleasure. Okay.
Yeah, he is. Prude, you there? I think his internet's. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys take it easy, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah. And I think this is wrapping up. Do you guys have any final thoughts, or is it? I mean, we've extended our.
No, I thought that the 3 films provided some interesting takes. I thought that the third one, Pig Hag, was the most interesting just because it was a fat woman's perspective, a large, whatever the way you want to call it, a woman of weight, a people of size, however people want to call it these days. I thought that was the most interesting one because it felt the most like a confessional, just because we don't usually get to see that perspective the most, whereas the 2008 Fatso really is the forerunner for a lot of potential trans discourse.
Yeah. And final thoughts, Default?
I don't know. I think I've said everything that needs to be said. Yeah, it's been a nice discussion.
Yeah, and a lot of those films hit close to home as well. So it was amazing. But yeah, that was I'm glad we could share this, and we'll think of something maybe more gummo for fat people.
Yo, gummo gummo for fat people is just gummo, right? Like
there was fat people in gummo. Yeah.
I was thinking I was gonna write this is my final thought. I was going to write a response to the Crumpler piece that went viral, but I thought it would just I like, why am I inserting myself in that? It's
why give him oxygen?
No, I just feel like it's like there's enough response pieces. I don't need to add my own to the mix. However, it sounds like all these people want to like make the next gummo, and the original gummo just like wasn't that good. And that was my thought. That was the thought I was having today.
Yeah. It's very true. Like, well, it's funny because in my Twitter space with Astro, we were talking about gummo quite a bit. But yeah, Harmony Korine being more of a complex figure than
he also knows so much more about film than a lot of these new folks do. Like Harmony Korine really knows his shit. I mean, he went to Tisch and he's very well watched.
Oh yeah. Even like, but I feel like he was the real brains behind his relationship with Larry Clark. So it's like
definitely. Oh my god, later Larry Clark films are just. I mean, there's that one.
You want to talk about exploitation? I mean,
yeah. He has a great book called, I can't even say the name of the book, but it's a crack up at the blank riots. That it's a really interesting book, and it really gets you inside the mind of Harmony Korine.
Yeah. Pizza the Hut, the story of autophagy. What is that? My God. But yeah. There was, well, because he was known more for like those crass ones, like Kids, or like really like small. Whereas these films that we covered, it's almost like a weird sympathetic take on small town America.
Yeah, and I will say that I think Julian Donkey Boy like doesn't really get its due. Someone mentioned Mr. Lonely in the chat. I think those are the 2 best Korine movies. They're really like I find them like very moving in a way that his other films aren't.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe we'll when we do another film analysis thing, maybe we'll mention Korine more. I say Korine, I don't know why. I learned a lot about films from Korine, but also too calculated, like Gallo's criticized. Yeah, I mean the problem is Gallo, like he doesn't have enough of output. So yeah. Is that you in the chat, Default, or you have a different channel?
I mean, that's the person who is called Default Friend is me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll make you a Janny, actually. Maybe I'll make you. Anyways, this has been great. We've had a good viewership for midday, which is, only EAA pulls off that. But yeah, so what do you guys have coming up? I know maybe next week on Content Minded, I think I'll probably release the Josh Neal episode, probably. So, and if I say it, it has to become real. So, what do you guys have? So, Prude, you're recording with Pete Quinones?
And so I'll be recording with Pete Quinones this afternoon. I'll be going over chapter 6 of AA's book, The Populist Delusion, talking exclusively about Bertrand de Juvenel, and that'll be a good time. This Sunday, I'm going to be reviewing and talking about that article you sent me about the return of industrial warfare, which I've been reading, and it's been very, very good. So I'm going to give a lot of talk on that. Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern is the Sunday stream, the best place for international relations and affairs. And then I'll be publishing on Substack a short little essay. It's a little of an autoethnographic piece that I submitted to Cars and Women magazine about life and sort of coming back to life after my transplant. And then, of course, I will continue to shill the IM 1776.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Everywhere at the End of the West, which I'm very
Wait,
proud
let me put
of.
this in the chat, actually. Let me put it in the chat. I was reading it. I read the whole thing, but I wonder if I still have the tab if I forgot. No, I'll find it. Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere at the End of the West. Yeah. I've been called Mark Fisher 3 times now, so I guess I'm doing something right.
I wonder if certain people get pissed off at you for that, though.
No, I did get an angry post against it because I was basically posting sorrow porn.
Well, yeah, but that's like not the leftoid critique of.
No. That was
oh my god, how dare you read my figure? There's some like not acceleration, but like there's some like people like Landians I might have on my show soon who have a podcast, that are doing good content. But I really loved your piece. I remember reading. I read the Secret Knowledge. I read the draft of it so beforehand. Yeah. But yeah, the ending was really great. So yeah, Default, what do you have to shill? You have when is my Adam Lanza episode coming up?
Okay, so I had to, what issues I had with everything.
The podcast on Apple and yeah.
Okay, so I hopefully, if this weekend isn't crazy, next week everyone's going to get 3 more hour-long. I think ours might be 2 hours long. So like too many hours about Adam Lanza. And yeah, I publish with Return twice a week, God willing, Tablet twice a week, God willing. I'm always updating my Substack. I have too much content. Y'all know where to find me if you're interested.
Yeah, Return's been great. I would love to publish in Return one day.
Hit me up, outside the stream, and we can make it happen.
Yeah. So this is the end, folks. Thank you very much for another amazing episode. Next week will be on Prudentialist channel, if I recall, and we'll talk about
we'll cook something up very special for you. But also don't forget, if you're wanting to see every episode, if you go to my channel and you go to playlists, there is a digital Archipelago playlist, so you don't have to worry about where episode 3 is, where episode 4 is, etc. You can watch them all in order. The distributist one was on mine last week, and it's been doing pretty good. So we're having amazing guests like the Dave or Default Friend. Things have been amazing.
Yeah, and maybe I'll be in the process of uploading them to Odyssey as well. You don't mind if I download your episodes and upload them?
Oh, no, that's perfectly fine. I need to do the same because some of my hours are sometimes too long to do the auto upload.
Yeah. God's dominatrix said, let's talk about noise instead of metal. I'm not too familiar with noise apart from the edgelord stuff like Boyd Rice, but noise is definitely. I wanted to get into Marsbo. I know Marsbo has these like short films that are like very creepy and futurist, and it's amazing. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. God bless. Goodbye. Maybe I might stream on Saturday. I don't know. I'll see what happens. But next week on Content Minded, mega 4-hour Theory Cell extravaganza with Josh Neal talking about his new content, his new essays. It's really amazing. It's really great. And I promise you, we do not talk about his book, American Extremist, because he's No, he's talked with everybody about that book. So, but it's a great book. Go and buy American Extremists. God bless and goodbye. Follow everyone. All the links are in the chat to Prudentialist Subscribe Star, to Default Substack, to my Substack as well. I believe I'm going to have a piece out next week, hopefully. And also patreon.com/Genre Productions. You can finally search it because I'm allowed to have it as safe for work now, because I was just annoyed because of certain artworks I cover have nudity in them, but because they're only audio, and they're paywalled. So yeah. Yeah. And also, I'm continuing my series. I don't show this enough, but I'm midway through the Giant Reviews, review series. I'm covering Byung-Chul Han's Psychopolitics. I'm halfway through the book. So every Sunday or Monday, I drop a new episode. And perhaps I have other articles in the work. I know Prudentialist, you also have a series on your Subscribe Star where you cover articles.
Every week there's a new article that I cover on international relations and foreign policy. It's called Flipping Through Foreign Affairs, and live reading, reaction, and analysis every week for my patrons.
Amazing. And Default, do you still do the advice columns with Delicious Tacos?
Yeah, I do. He actually just reached out to me today, and he's telling me I've been slacking on them. So we're coming out with some more.
You should release the incel one for free.
The incel one?
Don't you have an you're asked about the incel question in that one?
Oh, that was a really long time ago. Yeah, this was just me. That I used to do the advice column with a normie, right? So
right.
All the old columns are either me or some normie guy.
Nice. But now you get Delicious Tacos. It very much is a contrast. It's like you're kind of like, modeling shoegaze, and his advice columns are like death metal. So it's very good contrast. But thank you all God bless. Goodbye. See you next week. Doing the too sweet, on the camera. And see you next week.
All right. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Yeah. Oh, I guess